Great words.
Take care.
Evening, Cop. Please be seated.
Hello.
Okay. Before I formally start the business meeting of City Council, could I remind members to use the microphones when speaking this evening to ensure that everyone in the room and watching online is able to hear everything. Can we have apologies, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Barry Stanners, Joanne, Lowson, Mathemba, Stokel Walker, David Wood, Margaret Wood, Taylor and Wright.
Any others? No. Move on to the minutes of the last meeting. Subject to a spelling correction to Councillor Austin's name. Apologies for that, Councillor. Okay, is that better? Right. Okay. So does Council agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June 2025? Thank you.
Excuse me, Lord Mayor, can I just raise a matter arising?
Oh, yes.
I haven't received responses from either Councillor Kilgour or Councillor Greenhalgh
Okay.
to the questions asked. Thank you.
Could both those councillors respond to Councillor Byrne? Yeah. Getting nods. Thank you very much, Councillor Byrne. Official announcements. On behalf of Council, I'd like to congratulate all those with a connection to Newcastle who were recognised in the King's Birthday Honours List and pay a particular tribute to Chiamura MP on the award of her damehood. Can I also offer my congratulations to Councillor Powers and Councillor Cummings on their recent engagement. Congratulations. I've received 2 requests for emergency notices of motion and agreed to accept them both for inclusion on the agenda as both meet the specified grounds for urgency. The first is from Councillor Ferguson on the Welfare Reform Bill, and the second is from Councillor Irimali relating to government action on Gaza. Both emergency notices of motion are published on the website and included in the items circulated at the meeting and will be considered at the start of item 10. Correspondence. Does Council agree to receive the correspondence from the Department of Transport in the items circulated meeting agenda? Thank you. Petition. One petition has been received. Can I call upon, is it Sharon Pitletley? Thank you. To present the petition regarding local bus services to Gosforth High Street.
We, the residents of Newcastle Great Park, strongly oppose the withdrawal of our regular direct bus to Gosforth. Mismanaged by the consortium and Newcastle City Council, this decision is not just inconvenient, it is damaging and discriminatory. It disadvantages visitors, workers, carers, the elderly, disabled and non-drivers by cutting access to healthcare, banks, churches, shops and community services. There was no meaningful consultation, residents were excluded. With no commitment to future provision, we now face isolation. This has increased traffic, harmed the environment and fractured our community. We demand immediate action through a fair, inclusive and transparent review.
Can I call on Councillor Sathian to respond, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Bigetley, for presenting the petition. We recently completed a consultation on our new movement strategy, which sets out how transport in Newcastle will develop through to 2045. A key message from residents was the importance of improving public transport, so we fully understand the strength of the feeling behind this petition. As you know, changes were made to bus services at Newcastle Great Park in September 2024, followed by further changes in March this year. This included a new direct service for residents in Brandon Rise and the Maples. The funding of these bus services comes from what is called a Section 106 agreement, a financial contribution made by the developers as part of planning approval. Because this funding is limited, we needed to find a solution that gave the best value and could help build a bus service that is eventually self-sustaining without relying on ongoing public funding. The previous Q3 service had become too expensive to run with falling passenger numbers. So the Council Transport Advisory Board reviewed the service and invited other operators to propose alternatives. This had to be done quickly before the start of the school year, and it was also affected by the strike action at one of the bus companies, Go Northeast. Ideally, we would have consulted more widely with residents, and that is something we are committed to improving in future. Since the new services were introduced, several parts of Green Park now had a better bus connection with more frequent services, new links to Kingston Park, and similar journey times into the city. Although the council does not directly manage commercial bus services, we understand that the developers organized 2 local events to explain the changes, and the bus company Stagecoach published information online and via Nexus. National rules don't require bus companies to consult the public before making changes, especially when the service is funded by a third party, as is the case here. But in our region, we do have a code of conduct that encourages early engagement. Unfortunately, that doesn't apply when developers are funding the service. We know these changes has caused concern, and the Transport Advisory Board will aim to do better on future consultation. The good news is that the passenger numbers on the new X47 and 49 services are up to 19% compared to last year, with thousands more trips being made. These changes has also helped schools manage demand for student travel, and feedback from commuters being positive. We have heard the request for more evening and Sunday services to Gosforth High Street. This is reasonable, but based on very low use in past, it can't be funded through the developer money. Still, we are actively exploring the ways to enhance the best offer in Great Park, and will keep the residents informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sathian, and thanks, Sharon, for bringing the petition. We now move on to public questions. 5 requests to address council have been received. Standing Order 11A of the Council Procedure Rules allows a continuous period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to ask questions or to address the Council. Written responses will be provided if the time limit is exceeded. Can I first invite David Harrop to address Council?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This council currently holds the stewardship for the City of Newcastle, and accepting this stewardship is a matter which needs to be taken with gravitas. It's inescapable that both the city's universities have large research contracts. I now realise that's not the case, which are predicated with collaborating and aiding the research and development of significant projects for the Israeli arms industry. I recognise that Leonardo is now not a university research project, but it is based in the Helix campus, which is owned by the city, the university and Legal and General. Undeniably, these research contracts are held with arms producers who are complicit in the genocide in Gaza and the continuing oppression of unarmed and illegally occupied Palestinian populations. It's even more egregious that we have a major weapons factory within the city which is currently producing weapons for active use in the ongoing process of genocide against the population of Gaza. It's incumbent on the Council to make its views clear and unambiguous about the stance in relation to these issues and to be clear about what is in their gift to make decisions about. It must consider what potential actions are available to the Council, such as urgently reviewing all Council business to ensure boycott and divestment of any activity which involves potential support of the State of Israel. It must be completely transparent about what the powers are and urgently prioritise reviewing all council licences and permissions in relation to both the universities and Raphael. Most importantly, they need to be assertive in the pursuit of the moral duty to pursue in the pursuit of showing demonstrable principles in discharging their stewardship of the city.
Thank you very much. Could I call on Councillor Kilgour to respond, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mr Harrop, for your question. As leader of this council, I agree with your assertion that our position as stewards of this city is one which I must and do treat with profound respect. I have, on multiple occasions in this chamber and outside of it, expressed my devastation over the continued suffering of innocent civilians and loss of life in Gaza. I have made public calls for immediate ceasefire, and I have backed government's review of and suspension of export licences and for Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law. At the same time, I have taken each opportunity that this crucial platform allows us, as custodians of Newcastle, to represent to the world what this city stands for. We are a city of sanctuary, and we pride ourselves on being diverse, inclusive and tolerant. We have a proud track record of providing homes to refugees who fled persecution in their home countries so that they can rebuild their lives here in Newcastle. We have always made clear that we expect all organisations based in Newcastle to share those important values. We will continue to make our views clear to those who live, work and visit our city, and we will do so transparently and within the law. I reiterate the Council's position on the Pearson's engineering site in Newcastle, that as the local planning authority, we cannot restrict or terminate the site's current use. The Council has no other controls over the use of the site. On the matter of actions available to us as the local authority, I agree that this Council should make its position clear in our dealings with all partners as I've described. Our successes as a cohesive city is dependent on understanding our communities and sharing our approaches to delivery to maximise our social and economic impact. With regards to our universities, I am assured that both Newcastle and Northumbria universities have in place robust processes to assess research applications, which includes a review of all ethical, legal and financial implications before any collaboration is agreed. This rigorous process ensures that the principle of academic freedom is respected and ensures that research and innovation from our universities is conducted in line with our values and within the law. We have no power to limit these academic freedoms. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr Harrop, you can have up to a minute to respond.
Thank you. Yes, this stemmed from the Coming to the City of Sanctuary event, which was a powerful expression of the morals and the principles of the city, which we're all rightly proud of. But it's the incongruity, I think, of having these establishments, these institutions in the city that I wanted to highlight. And I think even if you have little capacity to control the areas of research undertaken by the universities, you've ample opportunity to make your views known to the universities and to express them forcefully. So I'd invite the City Councils really to explore what is in your gift that you can actually make your views known and uphold the strong morals and principles which have underpinned the City of Sanctuary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Harrop. Can I next invite David McGovern to address Council?
Thank you. Recent leadership changes within the Newcastle City Council's Property Services Department have raised concerns about transparency and accountability in the management of public assets. Can the leader of the council confirm whether any internal investigation, audits or extended reviews are currently ongoing in relation to the property services or estate teams? What steps the council has taken to ensure openness and public accountability and how it manages public assets, especially in the light of significant public project delays and legal disputes such as the Plot 12 development. Transparency is essential when dealing with public property, and the public has a right to understand whether proper governance is being applied.
Thank you very much. It's actually Councillor Frew who's going to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question. I will apologise up front if this isn't as specific as you're asking. I'm struggling to understand where you're trying to go with some of this question, honestly. I'm not clear what the questions around transparency are with the departure of a member of staff. However, in response to your questions, are there any internal investigations, audits or external reviews in property services or estates? No. And what steps is Council taking to ensure openness and public accountability? This is set out at length in our annual governance statement. This statement is reviewed annually by the Audit Committee and our external auditors. There have been no significant concerns raised from either on this point for some years. The AGS sets out how the Council's governance framework complies with principles of good governance, behaving with integrity, ensuring openness, defining outcomes in terms of sustainable economic, social and environmental benefits, determining the interventions necessary to optimise the achievement of the intended outcomes, developing the entity's capacity, including the capability of its leadership and individuals within it, managing risks and performance through robust internal control and strong public financial management, implementing good practices in transparency, reporting and audit to deliver effective accountability. I would say in addition to this, we've also published a strategic asset management plan in terms of the Council's own assets, and there's continued work to develop this out further, so there's a clear strategy in terms of how the Council approaches its own property. In relation to Plot 12, I'm not sure if you're trying to speak about the Council's property services here or the planning authority role of the Council, which I'm trying to respond on the property side. In terms of the planning authority, if a application comes forward, there's a process. This is very open and transparent, as it should be, and largely set out in statute. Where the local authority is involved in any application, we do our best to consult with residents on those applications and try to get that right before going into planning, and try to deliver quality developments for the city.
Okay, thank you. You have 1 minute to respond, Mr. McGovern. Yeah,
well, obviously the question did have to change, so it probably doesn't make total sense. But on that, you know, at a time when many community organisations are struggling, can the leadership explain why charities and grassroots groups in the West End who are directly supporting residents are being charged such high rents and made away months for the contracts and the leases to be agreed. There's one council-owned building in the West End, Learning for Life is a charity supporting young adults there with learning difficulties. They're being charged double the rent of a private for-profit gym that's offering, paid-for services for the same space. So, why are these charities being extorted and overcharged when they're struggling as it is, compared to businesses in there that are for profit?
Is that it? Right, thank you very much.
Lord Mayor, can I just say that I'm not aware of that specific case and I'll follow up?
Okay, right, thank you. Right, next, can I invite Alistair Ford to address Council?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm aware there was a question at last month's council meeting about 20 miles an hour speed limits being enforced in the city. I would like to ask a different question about the council's own designation of speed limits in the city. In September 2023, the Welsh Government introduced a 20 miles an hour speed limit, not without controversy, across most roads in built-up areas in Wales. Since then, road casualties on those roads have dropped 28%, with 500 fewer people being killed or seriously injured in the year after the introduction of the limits than in the previous year. In the Wirral region, where 20 mile an hour limits were introduced in a trial in 2023, results show that there was a 23% reduction in people killed or seriously injured on those streets, and over 50% reduction in vehicles travelling over 30 miles an hour across that region. In London, analysis of results of schemes introduced between 1989 and 2013 showed that people killed or seriously injured on borough roads reduced by 34% following the implementation of 20 miles an hour speed limits. There was a 75% reduction in the number of children killed in those areas, whilst other areas without 20 miles an hour speed limits saw no change. These are not statistical blips. Lower speed limits in built-up areas where most people walk and cycle and where more children are on the streets are shown to increase safety and reduce casualties across the world. Unfortunately, despite efforts over the years to introduce 20 miles an hour speed limits on residential streets in our city, Newcastle still has many roads where 30 miles an hour speed limits apply in our built-up areas. For example, Fenham Hall Drive, near where I live, is still a 30 miles an hour speed street, despite the presence of 2 schools, a library, a GP surgery and local shops on this street. Claremont Road, with a busy nursery over which children and parents cross to access each day, is still a 30 miles an hour street. Chillingham Road in Heaton, a busy shopping street with densely populated area, is still a 30 miles an hour street. The West Road, a thriving shopping street with educational, leisure and cultural facilities, is still a 30 miles an hour street. Shields Road, etc., etc., you get the picture. Speed limits are not just a social and safety issue, but also an environmental one. The World Health Organization identifies air pollution and noise pollution as the biggest threats to public health in urban areas. Air pollution increases with higher levels of acceleration and higher speeds, and previous questions to Council have explored the impacts of air pollution on the health of the people in the city. Noise pollution from road traffic is also a major issue in urban areas, and research has shown that noise pollution is linked to numerous physical and mental health issues, including cardiovascular disease and premature mortality. Noise pollution also increases with traffic speed, and some areas of Newcastle are exposed to high levels of traffic noise. As an example, the A167 in Newcastle goes from 50 miles an hour on the central motorway up to 70 miles an hour alongside Claremont Road before reducing to 30 miles an hour at Cowgate Junction. Thousands of vehicles a day accelerate from 50 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour for a distance of a mile and then reduce to 30 miles an hour again, massively increasing noise and air pollution emissions. This impacts the people living alongside the road to save drivers a few seconds on their journey time. Given that 2024 saw 10 people tragically killed on Newcastle's roads, I would like to ask the Council why there are still residential streets within our city that have 30 miles an hour speed limits. Will the Council commit to a full review of speed limits across the city and work to reduce speed limits for traffic in our area to reduce these social and environmental impacts of road traffic? And can the Council commit to eliminate 70 miles an hour roads from within Newcastle's boundary and make 20 miles an hour the default for all roads in our built-up areas? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ford. I'll call on Councillor Sathian to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mr Ford, for your question. Making our streets safer, particularly in built-up areas where people live, travel, and access essential services, continues to be a priority in our transport planning. In Newcastle, we introduced a citywide 20 miles per hour speed limit on neighborhood streets, those not forming part of the classified highway network and not used for scheduled bus services. This rollout was completed in December 2011. In some residential areas where unclassified roads carried bus routes, we also applied 20 miles per hour limits. An evaluation showed these reduced average speeds by around 2 miles per hour and resulted in a 35% reduction in collisions in those areas within the first 3 years. The setting of these speed limits is the legal responsibility of the Highway Authority, but it is governed by national guidance issued by the Department for Transport. This guidance, revised in March 2024, emphasizes that speed limits should be evidence-led, self-explaining, and used in right places with local consultation and support. It also warns against blanket 20 mile per hour schemes, as overuse may reduce public acceptance and effectiveness. So to answer your first question, why some built-up roads are still 30 miles per hour, it is because current limits reflect earlier assessments under this national framework, based on factors such as existing traffic speeds, road function, and safety data. Your second question asks whether we will commit to a full review of speed limits. While we cannot commit today to a citywide conversion to 20 miles per hour, we are open to reviewing current limits. A full network assessment would be a significant undertaking and would require dedicated funding. We are actively exploring this part of a wider work on our Newcastle movement strategy. And finally, in terms of eliminating 70 miles per hour roads, we will review this where we have control, particularly along the A167 corridor, as part of our commitment to reducing emission, noise pollution, and road danger. Any proposed changes would also need to align with national guidance and be evidence-based. In conclusion, while we must work within legislative and funding constraints, I want to assure you we are committed to safer, healthier streets, and that speed limit policy will remain an important part of our long-term transport strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ford, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Safety. And it's good to hear that 20 miles an hour is an ambition of the council. I just hope that local residents can work with the council in the coming months and years to make the case for streets in their local areas where they feel 20 miles an hour would be more appropriate. I know in Fenham, where I live, there are many streets where local residents are concerned that the speed limit is still 30 miles an hour, yet despite the presence of schools and many children around the area. There's also inconsistencies where Fenham Hall Drive is a 30 miles an hour speed limit and Netherby Drive, the other side of Two Ball Lonnon, is a 20 miles an hour limit. It's very hard to understand why there's a different speed limit on the same road, two sides of another road. So I think there is lots of local knowledge around the city and where danger exists, and I think local residents would be very happy to, myself included, work with the council on trying to identify places where 20 miles an hour would be more appropriate. And thank you for agreeing to review the 70 miles an hour on the A1672.
Thank you very much. Sadly, the 15-minute time period for this item on the agenda has now passed, but I can assure the two other people who were here that your questions will be answered by Cabinet members. Okay? Thank you. Right. The Youth Council. Oh, wait a minute, I'll just let people leave. Great. I'm happy to say we have members of the Newcastle Youth Council here with us tonight. And can I now invite them to come and address Council? Members can ask questions following the presentation. And may I ask that all replies be given together at the end.
Hi, we are the Youth Council and we're here to update you on our progress since November when we were here last and what we plan to do over our last year of term. I'm B and last year I discussed school attendance, especially focusing on autistic kids like myself. Since then I've been working with the Every project to start an open conversation with their partners and regarding inclusive practice using my perspective of lived experience. Surveys were distributed during the recent Every anniversary event and businesses such as Northeast Museums, Gosforth Civic Theatre and the Life Centre have expressed interest on my mission to work to improve accessibility and highlight impressive work already achieved by businesses all over Newcastle. This was also done at the Every event, which had speakers from young people, including the Action Foundation, which supports asylum seekers and refugee young people, speakers from Jesmond Park Academy, and included stalls for White Ribbon and my work on neurodiversity and inclusion. The 3 top priorities of Every are creating inspirational experiences of work, things to do and places to go, and celebrating religious and cultural events for young people. Over 100 people are on the work experience programs this year, and there were many Christmas presents wrapped for many children across Newcastle last Christmas, including and also an Eid event at a mosque in Elsick. At the Every event, there was also a video on cheap things to do and places to go with Youth Council and Send Voice trainees. And overall, I'd say this links to some of the stuff I've been doing related to neurodiversity, which part of what I did was the Send Us Voice Heard training at Kenton School to share my lived experience and how teachers can be more understanding and have more of a conversation with their autistic students. I've also been working with Northeast Autism Society, and I will be on the This Is Autism podcast and helping with their PhD research about school attendance. And next, I hope to work with more companies to create this open conversation and discuss inclusive practice. And hopefully you can attend an event in October half term here called Autism Cake and Conversation to have more of an informal chat about autism with people in the council. And Every hope to extend the work experience programme and continue providing these inspirational experiences of work and religious and cultural, celebrating religious and cultural events. So thank you, and next will be Barath talking about toilets and vaping.
Thank you, B. Hello, I'm Barath Gopal, a 15-year-old Newcastle Youth Council member. In October, I talked about vapes and how we were going to have a joint meeting about young people's concerns following the ban of disposable vapes back in January. Following this, I can proudly say that we talked about health-related issues young people face and how it can have negative effects on other sectors of a young person's life. Now, I can happily say that we can use the ICB fund, which was recently confirmed, to combat the negative mental health effects as a result of vaping. We recently conducted a survey about vaping, which is targeted to young people. This helps us get a clearer idea about our next steps, which we need to make. On the topic of vaping, many school kids vape in school toilets, which ruin the sanctity and purpose of the school toilets. Many school kids across Newcastle have reported of having negative experiences with their toilets in schools. We have figured this out through our thorough surveys about toilets, which were very eye-opening. This will then help us come to a collective solution, which will be instrumental for us, as toilets are essential to life, a basic human right, which is very important that we get right. Now I'm going to pass on to Cara Mitchison about the White Ribbon Project.
Hi, my name's Cara, I'm 14 years old and I'm a member of the Youth Council. As you probably will already know, White Ribbon is a movement that works towards ending male violence towards women and girls in particular. Our North Locality Youth Voice group, which includes myself, worked on a project a few months ago where we made poems and short videos about gender-based violence in White Ribbon. And we displayed them at our launch event here at the Civic Centre on the 10th of April. Since then, we have met with Lynn Elliott, who is the CEO of White Ribbon, and discussed various ideas for our next steps. We are hoping to spread our short videos and poems nationally and send our videos to schools across the country and be able to be involved with White Ribbon and expanding the project. We are also hoping to set up workshops and activities around gender-based violence with different categories, including gender stereotypes and how to help more. We are going to send these to teachers in schools across the country, and hopefully we can do this by the 25th of November 2025, which is White Ribbon Day. I will now pass on to Jayden, who is going to talk about transport.
Hello, my name's Jayden and I'm from Youth Council. In February, me and the other youth councillors were offered a visit to the Nexus CCTV room in the training centre and got to travel on one of the new metros. We learned how Nexus ensures safety for public transport. In example, the new metros now have 45 cameras, which is a massive improvement of the 8 that only the new old metros had. Not only that, but the new metros are part of the Young Spectre project, which can make the metros more accessible for people who are disabled or neurologically cannot. And we also learned different ways to report an incident on the metro anonymously. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jivan on climate change.
Hello everyone, hope you're all well. My name is Jivan Abhilash and I'm 15 and part of the Youth Parliament. Last time I came up here, I talked about what the Youth Council are doing with the climate change team and how we planned a climate change summit and climate change forums. Right now, we are planning the next climate change summit, which will happen in October. Just a reminder from last time, the Youth Climate Change Summit is an event where the youth can come and learn about climate change. We as a Youth Council believe that is essential, and the education is essential and crucial, as if we educate the youth about how they can be sustainable in life now, they can carry on when they're older and pass it down to their children. So far in 2025, I've had some amazing opportunities with the Youth Council. One of these opportunities being able to attend the Marmot City Conference in February. The event was really good and eye-opening, as it was a reality check about the pay inequality in our city. However, the event taught me about how Newcastle is working hard to increase the quality of public health and decrease poverty. It was also great listening to Sir Michael Marmot and others talking about their aspirations for the city. Thank you for listening. I hope that we can work together with some of you guys soon to make our city a better place. Now I'm going to invite Samir to come talk about parks and open spaces. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samir and I'm part of the Youth Council, and I'll be talking on parks and open spaces. Parks are important as they give young people a place to have fun and enjoy being outside. There was previous work done with Urban Green, including working with them to help develop new park management plans. One of our suggestions were to make rangers more visible in parks because this could help young people feel safe, and we are pleased this was taken forward. Now we are continuing this work with Newcastle City Council Parks team. We recently attended the first meeting of the Parks Connect Forum, and we are really keen to link into this group going forward. We also plan to include parks in our Young Inspectors programme to ensure our voices are being listened to and changes are being made. Thank you for listening. Now on to Finley, who will be talking about our next steps.
Thank you very much. I'm Finley. I'm a member of Youth Parliament for Newcastle, which means that as well as working on all the amazing local projects on the Youth Council, I work more on a UK-wide. So I'll just give you a bit of an update about Youth Parliament because a lot's happened since I was last here. So we had annual conference, which was where we created our policy for our manifesto, which contains over 110 different policies. It's split into government departments, and you'll be able to find it online. It's worth a read. We then had in February the House of Commons sitting, where we debated 5 topics chosen from our manifesto on free public transport, votes at 16 in political education, the national minimum wage for under 22s being raised to the same level as over 22s, and standardised political literacy and democratic education, and free accessible good quality period products in public spaces for everyone. The objective of the House of Commons sitting was to decide the two priorities that we were going to mainly focus on in this second year of our two-year term, which is more focused on campaigning. The winning priorities were votes at 16 and period dignity. Already in Newcastle, we're working on period dignity within the Youth Council. We've sent out a survey, the school toilet survey. Barath was previously talking about loosely covered period dignity as well. And following on from that, we sent out a more detailed period dignity survey, which my fellow member of Youth Parliament, Poppy, is taking the lead on. She sent her apologies for not being here tonight. The survey has found that 40% of respondents said products were too expensive, 75% were embarrassed or ashamed about their periods, and 50% said they wouldn't feel comfortable asking in their schools for period products. And that's just some of the headlines. We're still delving into the detail of the results. We're also using the health-related behaviour questionnaire results as well, which shows that 25% of girls have been absent from school because of period-related issues. Work we've done on Vote 16, that's harder to do at local level, but I organised, along with Every, the debating competition for sixth forms last year. That saw 5 schools and 1 wildcard team made up of different schools competing in order to help schools and sixth forms develop their political education and debating skills, and I'm pleased to say it's now an annual commitment, so it will be happening in November again this year. Like I said earlier, this year of the Youth Parliament term is focused on campaigning and focusing mainly on the two priorities, and then there's also committees, again, loosely following government departments, which are looking at all our different policy. Thank you very much for listening to us. Our next steps, we hope to work with you guys, and it would be really great to see more work between the Council and the Youth Council to work together and us representing young people to you. So we hope to support the new cohort of Youth Council. In March, there's going to be new youth elections. So next time we're here, there may be a whole new Youth Council. And we're going to continue with our priorities, including a second meeting with school leaders on school toilets, working with the Children's Partnership, and continue work with Every, as well as all the other work we've spoken about today. If you'd like to get in touch, you can contact the Voice and Influence team or Vicky Hartley. Thank you very much. I think we're going to do questions now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that excellent and thought-provoking presentation. Will you be answering the questions, Finley?
Yeah, and we'll split them up between us if someone's
okay,
subject.
fine. So, can I call on Councillor Ferguson? Can Councillor Story stand by, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I believe I'm coming to speak to you next week at your meeting, and I'm very much looking forward to that, particularly on the basis of what you've said this evening. I look back at the minutes from the previous meeting. You said you were going to do stuff on climate change. You've come and given us an update on that. You said you were going to do stuff on vaping. You've given us an update on that. You said you were going to do stuff on the White Ribbon Project. You've given us an update on that. You said you were going to do stuff on parks and green spaces. You've given us an update on that. You said you were going to do stuff on transport. You've given us an update on that. And there was a question that you were asked about engaging young people in politics, and you've even talked about what you've done on that since then. Where do you find the time to do all of that? But more seriously, it sounds like there's been so much positive progress. You're clearly change makers in the city, and you should be rightly proud of yourselves. But I think it would be helpful for members in the chamber to hear about some of the challenges you faced in achieving what you've done so far, and how we might be able to help move past those challenges in the future.
Okay, thank you. Can Councillor Musharraf please stand ready? Councillor Story.
Lord Mayor, thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to the White Ribbon film premiere, which we held in this very chamber. That was absolutely fantastic. And you've already said quite a lot about this, but I wonder if there's a little bit more detail that you can tell us about what the next steps are in terms of the White Ribbon campaign for the Youth Council. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Can Councillor Austin please stand by? Councillor Musharraf, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and excellent work. I can't believe the maturity you guys have shown in a year, and heads off. But when I heard you speaking today and compare it with last year, it's evident that you really worked hard to reach out with your fellow friends in the community. Recently, I was invited in a primary school, St. Paul's School in Elsick, where I've seen how those young kids are also taking their steps towards this channeling in, how to channel their thoughts and understanding. And it's opened my eyes that how mature you are. And my question would be, what Youth Council can do to reach out to those age group which we will not be able to do? So if you have any guidance for us or any suggestion, it'll be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Higgins stand by? Councillor Austin?
So thank you for coming along tonight. In my day job, I am a youth worker and I listen to young people all the time. I would just like to thank you for bringing the bit about the Voice and Influence team and the survey that you have done with the school toilets. I've seen some of that research and I was appalled and shocked by it. I'm just wondering what are the next steps with that survey that you've carried out?
Thank you. Can Councillor Christine Morrissey please stand by? Councillor Higgins?
Yes, thanks, Lord Mayor. Can I welcome our Youth Council to the Council Chamber this evening? And I think I also had the pleasure of meeting you during my year as Lord Mayor and hearing about your wonderful work. That was absolutely brilliant. So my question is a fairly simple one, is that if there is one thing that the Council can do in the next year to improve the lives of young people in the city, what would it be?
Okay, thank you. I gather Councillor Morrissey isn't here. Oh, right. Okay, thank you very much. So that's the end of the questions. So can we have your responses, please?
Yes, thank you very much. So, Councillor Ferguson, thanks for your compliments. Where do we find the time? Well, I've just had A-levels, so I've not had much time. But now I've got loads of time, so it's great that I have something to fill my time. I don't know where you guys find the time, because you're all still at school. But I think that is just testament to how hard everyone on Youth Council works. And in fact, never have we had something come up that no one's been able to do. In fact, everyone normally jumps on everything. Normally we have to have waiting lists. Challenges we faced, mainly people listening to young people. And by listening, I mean actually listening, not just tokenistic, oh, we'll listen to you and then not do anything. That's probably the biggest challenge we've had. Change is hard, as I'm sure you all know. But as we've mentioned, we've already seen some change. There's been some disruptions, but just that support from older people. And actually listening and acting on what young people say is probably our biggest challenge. Councillor Story, I'm going to hand over to Cara to answer your question because White Ribbon's her specialty.
Yeah, so we've just started some plans about what we're going to do for White Ribbon Day on the 25th of November. But we've already met with Lynn, the CEO of White Ribbon, once over a call as well. But we're hoping to meet up with her a couple of times throughout the summer holidays and before White Ribbon Day. And as I said, we're going to try and involve stereotypes and how people who are struggling can get help into our package, and we can talk about different categories within it, and we're going to send these to teachers across schools in England and Wales, and hopefully we can get lots of schools involved.
Thank you very much, Cora. Councillor Mushraf, on primary schools, thank you again for your compliments on us. It's great to see that we've improved. Yeah, what you can do to reach that age group, and that is a hard age group. We start as a youth council on 11. We've actually got everyone from 11 up to 18 because I'm 18 now. But I think working with, the Voice and Influence team do a great job with primary school children. We've had primary school specific events, including a Net Zero Hero event. I think holding those specific events, and you as councillors, like you've done, going and visiting the schools, primary schools, because they are a harder age group to reach because they can't necessarily come up and do what we're doing, although they could try, and I think they do a great job at it, but some people think they can't do it. And also, they're, like you said, an age group full of thoughts about the world. If you've ever worked with young people, you'll know that. Just on the school toilets, which I'll come to your question on that in a second, but that's something that came up in all of the youth groups that the Voice and Influence team works with, and that's how we decided to focus on that. Completely unprompted, school toilets came up. So again, it's listening to young people and letting them say what they think without trying to guide them down a path, and then acting on what they say, not necessarily what you think is best for them, because they know what's best for them. Councillor Austin, thanks for your work as youth worker. Youth workers do great work. On the school toilets, it is our survey. We had just over 150 respondents, and some of the quotes that come from that are absolutely shocking. If you'd like a copy, I'm sure we can send it out. Next steps, so we've met with school leaders, including the education team here at the council, and I have got a thing of next steps. So we've kind of presented to them in that meeting what we found in the survey, and we let them say to us what they're doing currently and the challenges they face. So they say they face challenges of toilets getting damaged, and in terms of period products, there's some barriers in schools on period products, which, following our meeting on that, some have changed, which is very good to see. Really, ideally, they should be out in a basket in the toilets. So what we've done, we've shared the surveys with the schools. We found out which schools have good systems, and the Council of Education team are facilitating the sharing of those ideas. Schools are going to do it in-school consultation with their students to see more niche views specific to that school. We also emphasise the fact that it's important, I guess this comes a bit back to Councillor Ferguson's question actually, to explain why decisions are being made to young people. Because if you make a decision and it seems like punishment, then they're just going to keep acting against that. It's in human nature to act against punishment sometimes, if you don't understand why it's being put in place. But Jesmond Park Academy, for example, found that they explained the damage that was being caused to toilets. They explained how much it was costing, the ramifications on them students not being able to get awards, and the damage in school in their toilets dropped drastically. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to meet again before the end of the autumn term to check progress and carry out another survey before our next meeting to see what has changed. Jivan and Brath very quickly wanted to add something on that point. I've covered everything. Okay, this is a question I've been putting off because it's quite a big question. Councillor Higgins, thank you very much. And it was great meeting you as Lord Mayor last year. One thing the council can do, so many. I think, and please, if you guys, B, would like to.
Yeah, like Finley said, it's a very broad question, and I think a lot of it is about doing the little things that you probably, might not think about. And I know, like, it's probably talk about this every year on and on again, about like listening to young people. But like Finlay said earlier, it's not just about listening, it's about doing. So getting in contact, talking with us, you know, having open conversations, and then actually working to put things in place so that, you know, I think a lot of the good things we've done with a lot of the groups is that we've also helped them take accountability for doing things, especially when it comes to, you know, we are still young people at the end of the day, and it's, you know, it's a bit of a pain when people don't respond to emails, things like that. So it's like, you know, I guess just also treating us like we're like people, like we're on the same ground, rather than as if we're lower or if we're doing lesser work or in any way. I think that's really important.
In terms of one thing I've settled on it, I think it's you guys actively working with us, and we understand you're also very busy. We're very busy, but we have meetings every month on a Monday night. Councillor Ferguson is coming to one, but that's the first time any of you have come to any of our meetings. So it'd be very nice, I think, you as a council coming to one of our meetings, talking with us, and actually seeing what us having a more direct input into your work, because you are elected by over 18s. You're representing the adults, and sometimes adults' interests are young people's interests, but you're not directly representing young people like we are. Our last youth elections had a very high turnout. We had 58 candidates standing for the election. The next ones we're hoping to get more and more turnout. Now we've got more traction going and a track record. So I think the biggest thing you guys can do is reach out to us, think about what you want from us. We're happy to give you information, and also reach out to your young constituents, because while they may not have voted for you because they can't, they are still your constituents. That's everything. Thank you very much. Sorry, reminder on contacts while I say that. You can contact the Voice at newcastle.gov.uk, or Vicky Hartley as well, who is in charge of Voice and Influence, or anyone in the Children and Young People's Directorate. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for that presentation. Obviously doing fantastic work for young people across our city. Thanks for that. We now move on to item 8, questions by members. 3 questions marked for oral reply were received and published on the agenda and deemed to have been put under Standing Order 9 of the Council Procedure Rules. 15 minutes is allocated to this item. Written responses will be provided if the time runs out. So the first question is from Councillor Huddart to Councillor Mains regarding the withdrawal of gardening services. Can we have the answer, Councillor Mains?
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Excuse me. Following its transfer from IHN, the garden care service was reviewed thoroughly and found to be unviable from a commercial perspective. Garden care service is non-statutory and was being funded predominantly from housing benefit. The service was projecting a substantial deficit, in effect being subsidised then by other residents in the city. A number of residents had moved to universal credit, with a large number more due to be transitioning over in the future. Garden care is not an eligible service charge under universal credit. So this was therefore going to reduce the income and become entirely unviable. We contacted all residents who used the service by letter, and residents were given a specific phone line to contact the council to raise any concerns. The issue with the garden care service was taken to full council on the 5th of March as part of the medium-term financial plan, and also taken to Cabinet. As part of those summaries, that was the opportunity also then to raise any questions and concerns that members might have had. We did receive actually a very low number of calls in response to the resident letter, and while some people did express some concern as to the potential removal of the service, equal numbers also told us that they were very dissatisfied with the service and that others had also moved or had passed or moved into residential care. The outcome of this consultation led to the decision by officers to remove the service, and this was communicated to residents last month. All residents have been signposted towards other services which would be able to deliver the service. One in particular, Nature's Landscapes. It's an excellent service run by the council, which also undertakes supported employment, training and work experience opportunities for local disabled people, and the cost of this is very reasonable. In fact, it's less than what was being charged previously. Also, the offer is there for any residents who's struggling around this and struggling to keep their own garden, that housing officers are there to have that conversation with them and to support them to access appropriate benefits such as attendance allowance or PIP, which are designed to support disabled people with additional costs of being disabled, and this would be one of them. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a supplemental, Councillor Huddart?
I do, because I think you missed a little bit on the first line. It asks if you are content that adequate consultation has been undertaken with tenants and councillors. Because the first I knew about this was when I was starting to get phone calls from residents, and I don't recall being consulted about this as a councillor, and there may be lots of you that have, and maybe I missed it somehow. But I know other people have had connections with residents who were concerned at the lack of consultation.
I am content that we did do a lot of consultation with residents, as I say, by letter and by sent a phone line. And as I mentioned, it was addressed in the medium-term financial plan, where budgets that were at risk were given to members, and that was giving people the opportunity to raise any questions or concerns that they should have.
Okay, thank you.
My colleague has another supplemental.
We have two possible supplementals, and as it happens, two members have indicated they would like to ask supplementals, and Councillor Mitchell is there by the microphone.
I'm going to read a line to you from a letter received by a pensioner. It is important that you don't allow your garden to become overgrown or untidy. Does that sound like a caring council? Does that sound like a council that is actually taking care of people? So my question to the member is this. Where was the impact assessment of the fact that this would disproportionately impact older residents and residents with disabilities? And how are you making absolutely certain that residents are not taken advantage of by cowboys who will exploit this, especially when they're being told by council that it is now their responsibility to take care of their garden, even if they're physically unable to do so?
Councillor Mains?
I think it's quite clear that we did do a lot of consultation and we did involve our housing officers. So all of those people who were consulted with and have the information have got phone numbers and contacts that they can get in touch with for us to help refer services to them and also to help support them, as I've said, in accessing appropriate benefits, which would mean that they would have more income and could be able to afford services.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Main, can I ask how many properties residents have or are being affected by the withdrawal of the gardening service, and what savings have or are being made as a result?
I actually will have to get back to you with that information because I don't have the number of residents with me at the moment. Sorry, but I'll get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is from Councillor Stone to Councillor Sathian about the Regional Traffic Signals Service.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So we have a statutory responsibility to maintain highway assets such that the highway remains safer for users. Over the past couple of months, we have engaged some external specialists to support and to assist with current service delivery requirements. And this is a standard practice in instances where additional specialist capacity is needed, because this is basically a specialist service, a key skill. For a medium-term solution, we are seeking approval to award, following a procurement process, a contract for these services to supplement existing provision. Since the contract has not been awarded, it would not be appropriate to comment on the financial implication at this stage. This decision will be a key delegated decision and is already on our forward plan. This decision will follow our normal governance processes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stone, I assume you have a supplemental?
I do, Lord Mayor, thank you. Thank you to Councillor Sathian for the response, and I assure you I'm not going to go into any questions about other issues in that team at present. I'm particularly asking about capacity to whether the Cabinet member has confidence in the current capacity to deliver both the emergency response service on regional traffic signals, but also on the long-term replacement programme. And in particular, could I invite her to comment on whether she's been aware of any correspondence from the DFT on this particular issue in recent weeks?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Because I already mentioned, actually, we got some external specialist support assisting, and also we have a medium-term solution. It will go through the due process, and also, based on the circumstances, I cannot actually go into any more details. So that's the minimum level of information I can share with you.
Okay, thank you very much. No one else has indicated they want to ask a question, so thank you, Councillor Sathian. The final question is from Councillor Woodick to Councillor Greenoff regarding the proposed changes to the layout of Gosforth High Street. Oh, it's Councillor Sathian again, is it?
It's me
Sorry.
again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The proposed changes to Gosforth High Street are transport improvements rather than a comprehensive economic development strategy. They are funded through the government's bus service improvement plan and active travel fund, which are specifically aimed at supporting more reliable bus services. We are also looking at widening footways and improving provision for walking, wheeling, cycling, placing particular emphasis on routes to and from schools and connections to the retail area. The scheme is still in development, and we will continue to engage with residents, businesses, and stakeholders. Our initial consultation stage resulted in over 1,100 comments being received, which are being used to help shape the final design. While transport proposals alone won't deliver a thriving economic hub, they are intended to create safer, more accessible, and more welcoming environment, which I believe are essential conditions for supporting the high street's viability. By improving how people move to and through the area, we are aimed to lay stronger foundation. So basically, these are transport improvement plans rather than comprehensive economic development strategy.
Okay, Councillor Woodick.
Yeah, I hear what Councillor Sathian's just saying. I hope she would agree with me that any road plan for any district centre across the city should adhere to three principles. Basically, making a district centre that people want to go to rather than follow through. Learn the lessons of other district centres that there are in the city that have had money thrown at them, and to work with partners both inside and outside the council to make the best district centre that we can. Does she not agree that in Gosforth High Street, so far, that's been sadly lacking?
All right.
Sathian?
So, I just want to mention that the scheme is still under development. We had the consultation, and we are actually, we are using that to shape the design. So it's an ongoing process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson? Sorry, Councillor Sathian is another supplemental.
Lord Mayor, I think Councillor Woodard rightly framed this question originally in the context of economic development, and I would share his concerns that the response clearly frames Gosforth High Street merely as a thoroughfare and not as a destination as we would hope as a district centre. But given that this has been framed in a transport context, I must ask, given the now unspecified delay to the movement strategy, will residents of Gosforth wait even further for an answer to what happens to their high street?
So movement strategy, we got a specific plan for movement strategy. So it is like evolving. So this will be similar to any other consultation we have done. So it's not a delay. We are in the process, and we will get there at the earliest.
Thank you very much. Responses to 2 questions marked for written reply are included in the supplemental agenda and published on the website. We now move on to item 9A, Cabinet Member Reports. Can I call on Councillor Samad to present the first report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry. As Portfolio Member for Culture, Music and Arts at Newcastle City Council, I am proud to champion the city's vibrant and diverse cultural landscape. Newcastle has long been a beacon of creativity and innovation, and this portfolio plays a key role in nurturing that legacy, from supporting our excellent cultural institutions to investing in grassroots initiatives and emerging talent. Our work ensures that culture continues to be an integral part of what makes Newcastle a unique, inspiring place to live, work and visit. The Culture, Music and Arts portfolio delivers a broad range of services designed to enrich community life and foster cultural engagement across the city. This includes funding and supporting arts development in our communities, free to attend museums and galleries, contributing to the Newcastle Cultural Investment Fund, which allows additional cultural activities to take place in communities. A range of events that we either host, fund or deliver ourselves, which includes many opportunities for our communities and residents to co-create activities while engaging in programs to improve their own cultural and artistic practices while showcasing their talent and abilities. We also work closely with artists, performers and cultural organisations to develop opportunities, grow local economies through cultural industries, and ensure access to arts and culture in equitable and inclusive. A key focus of our work is making culture a tool for regeneration, health and well-being, and culture and civic pride. And in addition to our cultural initiatives, the libraries and customer services within my portfolio play a crucial role in fostering community engagement and providing essential services to residents. Finally, as a proud city of sanctuary, Newcastle is committed to being a welcoming, inclusive and compassionate place for everyone, especially those seeking refuge and safety. In summary, our events, public art installations, museums and creative learning programs work closely with artists, performers and cultural organisations to develop opportunities, grow local economies through creative industries and ensure access to arts and culture is equitable and inclusive. A key focus of our work is making culture a tool for regeneration, health and well-being and civic pride. Meanwhile, our customer services ensure that residents receive timely and efficient support, addressing their needs and concerns with compassion and professionalism. Together, these services contribute to making Newcastle a city where everyone feels valued and supported, reinforcing our commitment to inclusivity and community well-being. We are Newcastle and we are all Geordies.
Thank you very much. I have 10 people so far who've asked to speak. Councillor Samad, do you want to take them one at a time or do you want all together at the end? Right, okay, thank you very much. Can I remind councillors to ask questions on this item rather than make speeches? Can we have Councillor Shatwell, please, and can Councillor Ferguson please stand by?
Thanks for your report. It's encouraging to see such a significant 10 million investment in-house for both increased staffing and the cultural programme. But how do we balance and manage the optics of this growth of in-house delivery with such a significant reduction in the culture fund that provides invaluable support to the wider sector in the city?
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Higgins please stand by? Councillor Ferguson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, just to place on record as Chair of Scrutiny, my thanks to Councillor Mains for fielding the Cabinet Portfolio Report on behalf of Councillor Samad at the meeting previously. It was very helpful to have your responses. Councillor Samad, thank you for the written response to the questions asked at Overview and Scrutiny, particularly in relation to the Culture Compact. In the 33 months since the first and last Quariate meeting of the Culture Compact, what, if anything, did the Council do to acknowledge and address the fact that culture in the city wasn't being coordinated and developed as we'd expected?
Thank you. Can Councillor Byrne please stand ready? Councillor Higgins, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Samad for this very comprehensive report, and particularly the reference to arts and culture as being so important in our city. However, it is vitally important that this is not seen as elitist and is taken out into our more disadvantaged communities. Would the Cabinet member therefore join me in congratulating Ballylorent and all other projects based at the John Marley Centre for their outstanding work in delivering arts and culture to families and to young people in and around the Scotswood area?
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Can Councillor Fairley please stand ready? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In your report, you discuss the mobile awards and state that total socio-economic impact of £1,315,810 was achieved, and that this represents a 4-to-1 return on our investment into the whole project. Can you tell us the data sources and methodology that were used to determine these figures? Where the £330,000 of public money spent on the mobiles is recorded in your budget, I've arrived at that figure based on your statement that there was a 4-to-1 return on our investment. And can you also tell us how much residents are paying for the Mercury Prize Awards event? Thank you.
Thank you. Can Councillor Coles please stand by? Councillor Fairley.
Thanks for the report. I think we all recognise the contribution that cultural events make to the city and our people. And I'd like to congratulate all those involved over the last year in making these events a success. But I would like to ask about the contribution made by our heritage assets. In Newcastle, we're blessed with many historic listed buildings and a built environment that gives Newcastle its unique characteristics. I'm talking about everything from Hadrian's Wall, Tyne Bridge, the Granger Town, even to the brutalism of the 1960s. So, what contribution do heritage assets make to the cultural life of the city? But above all, what contribution do they make to the economic success of the city as well?
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Qureshi please stand by? Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Samad for the report as well. I'm largely glad with its content. I just wanted to ask about accessibility. You mentioned that and improving accessibility for people. Have you been working with people in the transport teams and NECA just to make it easier for people to get around to all the various venues involved? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Musharraf please stand by? Councillor Qureshi.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Abdul for bringing the report. So from initiatives on Shields Road to events held on Hadrian Square, and more recently now projects like the lighthouse taking off in Byker, we're hoping to see a cultural resurgence driven by grassroots energy. So can the Cabinet member set out how the Council is going to support these cultural and creative sparks in areas like Byker, ensuring that all communities beyond the city centre are to benefit from cultural investment in this city?
Thank you. Can Councillor Story please stand by? Councillor Musharraf.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Samad, for the report, and thanks to your team as well. You mentioned about Adelaide Terrace in your report, and the economical development which is bringing cultural change and the shift in the community. My question would be to see how you're engaging with the local community groups to make it sustainable so we can see a prolonged change in the area in Elsick. Thank you.
Thank you. Can Councillor Ashby please stand by? Councillor Story.
Thank you for your excellent report. I really enjoyed reading it. I have a huge interest in your portfolio, as it used to be mine. And I just wanted to say, really, one of the things that I particularly enjoyed around the Mobile was attending some of the Mobile Fringe events, which happened across schools across the city. They were absolutely fantastic, but I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about what more we're doing for children and young people, how we're involving them in the cultural agenda, how we're delivering for them and with them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and the Cabinet Member for Culture, Music and Arts. Can I refer you to the section on ambitions for Euro 2028? Sports England is quoted as claiming it would be worth £117 million to the city, a remarkably specific amount. Will that be used as the basis for council spending on the event? If so, will the Cabinet Member take into account Councillor Byrne's concerns in her written question earlier this evening about robust data and appropriate methodology for calculating benefits? Will he also ensure that officers take similar care in all such claims made within the portfolio's scope? The item also mentions St James's Park in this context. In the light of the answer to the public question at our last meeting, has Newcastle United or its agents since then made any formal or informal approach to any officer of the Council or Cabinet members, and is there any non-disclosure agreement in force that prevents this question being answered?
Thank you very much. Well, they're all the questions that have been indicated. So, Councillor Samad, you have 14 minutes, technically, to answer all those questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll do my best with that. Just bear with me a moment. Can I start by just agreeing with Councillor Ferguson and thanking Councillor Mains for taking on my portfolio of scrutiny. Unfortunately, I was a bit ill, but Councillor Mains stepped in at the last moment, so I do very much thank you for your assistance on that matter. Councillor Higgins, yes, I'm happy to join you in the congratulations of the work they've done. It's fantastic to see what they do for the community and for the area, and long may it continue in that process. So thank you very much. Would like to commend that. In terms of Councillor Story, I believe you asked a question about children and young people. So as children and young people aren't mentioned specifically in the report, but there are a number of ways that children and young people are engaging with the city's cultural outpost as follows. So we've, through school visits and unplanned visits to our museums and galleries, particularly Discovery Museum and Laning Art Gallery, where school visits are increasing. With the mobile event, we engaged over 30 schools, which saw over 2,000 children take part in a specific schools program. Over 1,000 additional young people engaged with fringe and outreach programs that included free-to-attend workshops, showcase concerts featuring 70 young performers, performing artists, and a music summit for young people to learn how to advance in the music industry. A region-wide fringe and outreach program developed with Newcastle-based music development agency. Generator is planned for October, and the Mercury Prize that will also include opportunities for young people to perform, take part in workshops and a further music industry summit. The City Council ran a Novum event in 2024, which saw over 1,000 people engaged in cultural activities, many of whom were children and young people. In terms of Councillor Qureshi, you asked a bit about what the kind of events we have for areas and such. The Council has made a commitment to a 10-year plan for events, which include some that are produced by the Council. It is vital that we are to continue these events into the future, and we must make them financially sustainable and as such build ticket revenue. However, of the key events, Novum, Newcastle Summer Festival and New Year's Eve celebrations will always have a core offer that is free to attend. In addition, we are producing a complimentary lower-cost ticketed winter festival, and with this and events such as Magic Weekend, we will always ensure that there is a ticket allocation given to the families from the Every programme. I believe Councillor Fairley asked about the heritage. Is that correct? Yes. So, in terms of the heritage, our heritage assets contribute to the distinctive character of our city and are a unique selling point that helps bring inward investment to Newcastle and the surrounding area. While we are in competition with other cities for investment, our heritage assets can tip the balance in our favour by offering something different, a strong sense of place and contributing to a lifestyle that our cities can't match, that other cities can't match. Furthermore, our heritage open days are one of the best supported, if not the best, outside of London. Councillor Burns, I don't have those figures in front of me right now, but if it's okay with you, I will respond with a written response, if that's okay. Yep. Sorry, I'm just trying to read what my pencil's written. Need him for my writing. Councillor Musharraf, I believe you asked about how we engage with local groups in Elsick, is that correct? Was it any particular group or was it just local community groups in general? Can I just in general? So we work, the team are fantastic at what they do. We reach out to green groups and we reach out to the groups itself through meetings. We've had meetings with several cabinet members in the local community. I believe your colleague, Councillor Hartley, attended one of them. And just Ben, technically Elsick Ward, I believe it is. I will just, thank you. But we did attend that, and that was a really good forum to see how the community responds. And it wasn't just in Elsick, it was people in Arthur's Hill, it was people in the wider side of the city. So it's holding events like that, seeing the response and seeing how we as a council can contribute and help to those people. That's it. Lord Mayor, if it's okay, just because I don't have the full stats ahead of me, if I can respond in written to colleagues across the board, if that's okay?
All of the rest of them?
For the rest of them, if that's okay, Lord Mayor.
Right, okay. But if I can remind you, the point of order Councillor Byrne made at the start, that she hasn't received responses that were promised from other cabinet members yet, so...
I will allow her to hold me to that if I don't respond by the next council.
Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Right, thank you, Councillor Samad.
Sorry, but if that was relevant to me, I have not had a response from Councillor Kilgour.
Okay, well...
No, excuse me.
Councillor Kilgour, can send that again, please.
No, I'm sorry, Lord Mayor, I don't want to disrupt the meeting, but I do think this is important. Councillor Kilgour circulated a response I'd had from an officer to a different question. She did not reply to the questions I asked her. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. The next report, 9B. Can I call on Councillor Mains to present the second portfolio report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit after a bad fall. Thank you, Lord Mayor. And before I start my portfolio, I'll just put on thanks and gratitude to all the amazing staff in the housing services. So it's been a year since we made the decision to close our ARMO and brought the management of our social housing in-house on the 1st of July 24. We spent the first couple of months assessing our social housing, and after talking to residents and assessing performance, we identified that our residents were not receiving the kind of service that they deserved and that we wanted to provide to them. We developed our housing plan, which was approved by Cabinet in October 24, and we also made a self-referral to the regulator of social housing, identifying shortfalls and providing a 2-year recovery plan to get our service to the standard that we wanted to provide for our residents. Since then, we've been working with them on a regulatory plan to make improvements. As people are aware, Cabinet is a governing body, and that receives a quarterly report on our KPIs, etc. The next one is out on Monday. How exciting. You can download it after Monday's meeting. Our key priorities are the same as they were last time, and as it was pointed out in scrutiny, they haven't been included in this report, so I'll just repeat them. Our first was to develop and implement a housing strategy and housing delivery plan. The second was to transform repairs and construction services to improve quality of repairs, reduce voids and improve construction to the council's housing stock. On the private rented sector, we wanted to ensure mandatory and selective licensing schemes provided safe, good, quality, well-managed homes to our residents. And we also undertook a review of the voluntary sector homelessness grant and provision with them as our key partners, and that's now in place. And we are currently working on the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. Whilst we recognise in the report that we still have some distance to go to provide the service that we want to provide, and whilst those improvements may not already been felt by all of our residents, we have in this year made some significant improvements, and this portfolio report highlights some of those. And with that, Lord Mayor, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you.
I'll sit down if that's all right.
Do you want to answer one at a time, or?
I'll do them all at once if I can.
All at once? Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. In that case, I'll call on Councillor Cairns to ask the first question. A reminder to everyone to ask questions rather than make speeches. Can Councillor Huddart stand by?
Thanks, Lord Mayor. As Chair of Planning, I'm really happy to see that Newcastle City Council has been selected as one of 10 Vanguard councils to co-design the new council house building support service. But I'd really like to have more details about what that actually is going to mean in practice. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Higgins please stand by? Councillor Huddart. Councillor Huddart.
Right, thank you, Lord Mayor. First question really is about, and thank you for your report. It is certainly more comprehensive than some we've had from your predecessors. I'm looking at page 4, which is about financial information. And if I can quote, it says, at Q3, the HRA revenue budget is predicting a deficit of 1.1 million against a break-even budget. Whilst we appreciate the positive outturns we've had from the overspend on repairs and voids, which was sorely needed, how come a deficit is being predicted when we were told the main reason for taking this from YHN, for taking the housing from YHN, was because it would save £1 million a year? Second question is about right to buy. The government is projecting changes into the conditions for right to buy, the regulations, etc., and they are to be welcomed. What predictions have been made about the outcomes for the city's HRA following the implementation of these new regulations? So that's a couple of main questions. I could give you more, but I'll save them for once the regulations are in place.
Thank you very much, Councillor Huddart. Can Councillor Campion please stand by? Councillor Higgins.
So are we permitted more than one question now? Anyway, can I first of all thank Councillor Mains for the very excellent report. My question is about one of my favourite topics, which is selective licensing. So I've seen the introduction of selective licensing areas into the West End and parts of our own ward in recent years to address some of the problems caused by troublesome private landlords. So could the Cabinet member mention some of the successes of this initiative, which is thanks to the hard work of the selective licensing team, and will she confirm that it will remain one of our highest priorities for these to be adequately resourced and possibly extended to other areas in the immediate future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Qureshi please stand by? Councillor Campion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Cabinet report details sections around new homes being constructed across the city, including where Newcastle City Council are a partner in that. Of course, Newcastle City Council are part of the Great Park Consortium. Will the Cabinet member detail what role she has had in ensuring that the Newcastle Great Park is being built to the highest standards and that adoption is being progressed at the fastest rate possible so that residents of Great Park will no longer have to pay both a service charge and council tax as they have been doing for many years? Thank you.
Thank you. Can Councillor Burns stand ready? Councillor Qureshi, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Paula for bringing the report. My question is regarding energy rebates to the Biker estate. Now, I was surprised to read that the council had done an apparent U-turn in refunding residents. From my recollection, this was always the plan once energy prices were confirmed and bills reconciled. So can the Cabinet member clarify the situation? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can Councillor Chisholm please stand by? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In the section of your report on private sector landlords, you rightly state that there are some landlords who exploit tenants by letting out unsuitable and/or dangerous accommodation which impacts on tenants' quality of life. Why then did you not use poor housing conditions as a criteria for the selective licensing scheme? Thank you.
Thank you. Can Councillor Hartley please stand by? Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mays, for that background report. My question is about claims management companies. I've come across a number of residents that I fear are being exploited by claims management companies, encouraging them to pursue possibly expensive complaints, sometimes on a no-win, no-fee basis, sometimes involving considerable detriment of the residents. So I'd like to ask the Cabinet member about these organisations and if she can give us any information about how we can protect our residents from them.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Story stand by? Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mains, for the report. Last September, I asked Councillor Mains if she had a target in mind for rolling out insulation schemes. Now, we had some good news. We did have some good news for the Biker Estate homeowners and energy bills this weekend after months of campaigning, so hooray for that. And by the way, it was surprising news. Certainly, it should have surprised the Labour group, seen as a year ago before I was elected, they were accusing me of raising false hope for asking questions about this during the campaign. So I think it must have been a surprise to everyone in this room. But I'm glad to see that, and that's been really, really good news for residents. But just to return to the point about insulation, because more broadly, plans for needed insulation for homes across the city was not even named in this year's housing report, though I appreciate, Councillor Mains, you did refer to it in the reflections on scrutiny. At Climate Change Committee last month, I raised the case of a resident who has faced damage and incomplete works when he took part in phase 2 of the Sustainable Warmth Scheme. What lessons can be learned from that scheme, and can you provide me with the promised information on targets for rolling out insulation schemes to help all people save money, all social housing tenants saving money on their energy bills this winter?
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Ferguson please stand by? Councillor Story.
Councillor Mains, thank you for a really exceptional report. And thanks, I'd like to put thanks on record as well for the staff who've worked so hard to deliver so much. My question's in relation to tower blocks. I live beside tower blocks and I have a tower block in my ward. So I'd like to say firstly, thank you, congratulations to be put on record for the transformation of tower blocks in Shieldfield and Heaton. And I'd like to ask for an update on progress in relation to Vale House. Residents tell me that the heating system is now completed, but I'd like to know that when are we moving into the next stages of the upgrades? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson has waived his right to ask the question. So, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mains, for what is an excellent report. Now, I understand that the requirements that are laid down under AWAB's law will be coming into force later this year. So my question is about the Council's preparedness for this. Are you able to update us on that, please?
Okay, thank you. Well, that's all of the questions, Councillor Mains.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry. I was so busy writing down stuff. Lost my place, right. So, let's have a look. Councillor Cairns. Yes, we're very proud to have been chosen as one of 10 councils to help co-design the new council house building support service. This was just announced from government by the Deputy Leader not so long ago. Being part of this project gives us a unique opportunity to shape the tools, support and expertise that will enable councils like ours to deliver high quality, affordable council homes at scale. Through this collaboration, we will access bespoke, support tailored to Newcastle's ambitions and contribute also to creating a national model that then can benefit communities across the country. So as we say very clearly in all of our reports, everybody deserves a safe, secure place to call its home. And through programmes like, I'm not quite sure how they're going to abbreviate this, CHOSS, we're determined to build hundreds of properties to meet the social housing need here in Newcastle. So first on, talking about, sorry, just because I've got it next to us, I'm going to, sorry, I'm wading through my report. Yes, Rob, Rob mentioned about our licence provision. It's a very key area of our housing strategy and looking at what we do in terms of making sure we do have a very good private rented sector. There's a lot of people live in the private sector, roughly over 28,000 of them. And yes, there are some extremely good landlords out there, provide really well managed, decent homes. But unfortunately, we do know that there are some that do exploit some of our tenants and provide very dangerous accommodation. Those generally hit the Evening Chronicle as well. And we had not so long ago a case where somebody was basically in an outbuilding who was a student here with his family from abroad. But, you know, within that whole service, we do provide tenants with advice and support. We also provide training, guidance and support for landlords. We provide training days and conferences. We provide free training, which is very good. And we also help people put together management plans so that they can be the best landlord that they can. But we do take action against unlicensed properties and we do take enforcement actions. And for those members who are on regulatory committee, you will know in quite some graphic details some of the terrible issues that we have to that we've become aware of and that we have to take action against. And also to support these sorts of issues, you know, things like antisocial behaviour as well, and things like that are also taken into consideration. So that it's a very clear sector, it's a very well-used sector, and in terms of the officers and the whole scheme, it wipes its own face, as they say, and so basically it will continue to carry on. Unfortunately, government will not allow us to just do a blanket licence scheme right across the whole city. You do have to meet some criteria, and certainly on, I keep mentioning cabinets on Monday night, tune in, because then we are going to be looking at the biker and Greater High Cross licence, selective licensing scheme at that meeting as well. Some nice bedtime reading for people. I'm sorry we got into a bit of a fight argument before, Councillor Hartley, but I do recall that we did inform residents that we were going to reconcile and give them money back over the the housing fees. And I sent Councillor Hartley the letter that I received because I approved the letter in the March. Yes.
Point of order. I mean, of course, what I was referring to was that a year ago, before the election, this was an issue that I'd raised and that residents have been campaigning on since then, and you've kindly responded to this residents' campaign, and now we've seen...
Councillor Hartley, that's not a point of order, Councillor Hartley.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're in perfect agreement about it. I mean, what I found quite upsetting, I suppose, was the term U-turn. Now, that possibly wasn't a word, the thing you used, because we had, in our letters to residents, said that once we reconciled all the money from the scheme, we would pay those people back who had been overcharged. So it was the term U-turn that in particular I think we were getting a bit upset about. Right, ASWAB's law I'll go on to. Yes, we finally got the guidance for ASWAB's law about 2 weeks ago, but council officers had been working on the draft proposals, so it's very good that we do have those now in place. Damp, as we know, because ASWAB's law was brought through because of absolutely horrendous conditions that people were living in with damp. We have a plan, we have training in place, we've been training our own staff. So most housing staff know something about damp and on their getting to know you visits and things like that. We'll be able to point it out, but we have trained some of our staff to the highest level to deal with those cases. That will be rolled out when we appoint some more supervisors to make sure that we're really on the case about it. And in terms of work that we did last year, I can give people figures that we had over 4,000 unique reports of damp and mould. I have to say that 35% of those though did come from the getting to know you visits, as some people were unaware that they had some damp issues. All of those properties have had their initial survey and work done to the households, and some people have had, in one case, we found a very, very vulnerable elderly man who had to be decanted because of damp in his house because he'd had a leak, hadn't reported it and was too embarrassed to actually discuss it with us. So we've got all the stuff, we are prepared for it, and I'm sure once that plan and action plan is in place, we'll be able to share that probably through Cabinet and through scrutiny or things like that. Vale House upgrade, yes, so Vale House has had its initial heating system sorted, but it is also in line for a new wet riser, communal upgrade works such as a community room and a scooter room, the entrance and some landscaping. So we finally got the tender pack of that together and are about to appoint a contractor. The wet riser replacement does require some specialist machinery, and that also needs signing off from the building safety regulator, which just came into force in 2024, so we will have to have that improved. That won't stop the work from starting, so hopefully we'll get the communal upgrade started. We expect that to start in autumn. And I know that, can try the patience of tenants because it takes time to get these things in place, but, as I explained in scrutiny, we do have to put the work out to tender. We do have to then score those. Due process has to take place so that, it's all there, that we're spending, residents' money correctly. The heating has been installed successfully, although some residents didn't take up the offer, but we are going back out to do some consultation with those residents, and we'll also run some sort of community groups and things like that for people to raise questions about what's coming up or about the new heating system, and just for them to share sort of tips and advice amongst each other. So that's what's happening with Vale House. Alistair, yes, you raised this issue about repairs, as I'm on the subject of repairs, yeah. So it is a great concern, some of these companies, and, I've received letters myself through the door saying, have you got damp, would you like to sue the council? This year we had 4,434 appointments for repairs, and 20% of those resulted in the tenant not being in. Now, this is when we've agreed with the tenant that they will be in. They've had letters, they've had texts, whatever. Or the case that tenants are refusing to let us in. So that has a great cost to the council. So that resulted in 887 appointments that were wasted. Now, if you do some basic maths on it and have them at £30 a unit, that would equate to £27,000. That's money that could be being used on repairs. And like I say, it doesn't include the cost of all the backroom staff sending out letters, and it also doesn't include any legal costs, because we do record refusals from residents when we know that they're in, and we do challenge all the claims that we get in the council. And I have to say, you know, I do think they target very vulnerable people in particular, and I don't think these companies are actually concerned about our residents or the state of their repairs. I think actually they are only concerned about making money for themselves. So, so thank you for raising that, but that is the situation that we're in, unfortunately. Going back to my list, what have I got? Targets on the insulation programme. I'm really sorry, I actually can't remember you asking that. So I will go back again and I will have a look at it. The only insulation I often get stuff about is rogue companies trying to sell it to residents and then having to check with officers whether they're people we deal with, those companies. Because obviously, although we have areas where we don't have any cold calling, we do get people cold calling about things like, can I give you some free insulation? So I will get back to you on that one. But I'm hoping you're impressed with all the insulation we've done around all of our tower blocks and windows and things like that. And they are extremely impressive, the work that's been rolled out there. Councillor Byrne, in terms of regulatory and licensing, poor housing conditions, I will have to go back and check that one with officers about whether that is included, because I'm not quite sure. I've got a feeling it isn't, so I will get back to you and talk about that one. Doreen asked some extremely complicated questions about the HRA. I do know this was asked at scrutiny, and I know that we are actually 1.6 million in surplus, but I will have to get that worked out and wrote down on paper and circulate that back to you. Is that okay? Because it was quite a complicated question, and I have to say, I'll put my hands up, Doreen, I'm not a great mathematician. It's not something I'm really strong at. So thank goodness we've got people like Vicky looking at the budget rather than myself. Ken's costs. Right, bye. Well, you linked that in with HRA as well, though, didn't you? And I think that's a bit I just didn't understand. I mean, obviously, since the announcement around Rent to Buy, we've seen a massive increase of people applying. I mean, hugely up on the previous year. So I will get back to you about where we are with that in terms of processing them and see where we are. I mean, what's it? We received, and as of June, we've had over 1,000 still in progress. That's a lot for officers to take on, and we haven't got extra hands in there to actually deal with this. So it will be a bit of a concern. So I'll get some latest details about that for you. Is that all right? Thank you very much. Gosh, who have I missed out? Let me have a look. Ellis, Councillor Campion, you raised something about Great Park Consortium about service charges and council tax. The adoption system. I'm going to have to get Dan, Councillor Green, have to answer that one because that's his particular bag. Right, is that all right?
Right.
Thank you. I think I've done everything.
Yeah. Just slightly over time. Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. I think this would count as a point of explanation, because obviously I wouldn't ask why you chose not to use a criteria that isn't in the government guidance. So can I just remind Councillor Mains that I emailed her on the 4th of June
Councillor
with a link
Byrne,
to
that
the
isn't
document.
a point of personal explanation.
It is a
If you
personal
have an
explanation. I
issue,
would never ask a question that wasn't
Councillor Mains,
verified.
please?
So I think to suggest that I asked a question without knowing the criteria was one that could apply would count as that, but I won't hold council up anymore.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes?
Next item.
Oh, next item, great. Well, the next item is appointments.
After that.
Okay. Does council agree the appointments are set out? No.
I believe a blank Schedule A was actually put on the agenda that doesn't include the appointments of the various independent and unaligned councillors, which I believe is Councillor Byrne onto Constitutional Committee and myself onto Planning Committee. And I'm looking at my fellow independent and unaligned.
Right. I'm told, yes, apologies are in order. That will be corrected. Thank you very much. Sorry, so the appointments are agreed, are they? No, yes, great. Thank you very much. Well, we now go on to the emergency notice of motion, the welfare reform bill. Sorry, Councillor Frew. Can I call on Councillor Ferguson to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Huddart?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. What a bill. What a disaster of a bill. We all know what happened. To see the Labour government forced to make last-minute concessions which stripped much of the welfare reform bill's content amid concerns of a large-scale rebellion by Labour MPs and a potential humiliating defeat. Many people who voted to elect Labour MPs and councillors in Newcastle didn't do so to support cuts to essential benefits for disabled people, to help them to work and to safeguard their opportunity to lead a normal life. They rightly believed that Labour better understood the daily challenges faced by people with disabilities and the necessity of the support they receive, both in terms of their day-to-day living and perhaps, ironically, in the context of this bill, their ability to work. I note that Labour are keen to highlight in their amendment that in actual fact 4 out of 5 Labour MPs voted for the bill. I'm not sure what point this is trying to make. It only makes Mary Glendon look more of an outlier than was originally the case. A parliamentary question from the Liberal Democrats at the outset of this process revealed that approximately 10,000 people could have lost out on personal independence payments in Newcastle alone under the original proposals. How many of those 10,000 will continue to be at risk? We don't know. We'll wait. They will wait. The Liberal Democrats have called on the government to withdraw the bill entirely, for a rethink until full impact assessments have been published and carers' charities as well as disability charities have been fully consulted. The truth is that this sorry saga has been a mess from start to finish, with MPs rightly acknowledging that their vote was forced on life-altering changes for countless people without the full facts being available to them at the time. So here tonight we have a range of amendments and a range of possible outcomes. Let me address these in turn to aid the clarity locally that our MPs were so sadly lacking last week. I acknowledge that the Greens are seeking a friendly amendment, but we have our concerns about a wealth tax, which many well-informed commentators are against. Indeed, the widely respected Institute for Fiscal Studies said just yesterday that a wealth tax would be a poor substitute for properly taxing the sources and uses of wealth. And I also acknowledge that the Labour amendment doesn't fundamentally change the resolutions in the original motion, but so much of the language is softened, watered down. Let me give you one example. Two-tier approaches, as mentioned in the original motion, aren't just wrong, as you say. They are morally indefensible. Let me give you another. The two-child benefit cap is pernicious. You would have said that yourselves once upon a time. And it was chaos and a lack of coordination that led the country here, as the original says. Removing those words doesn't change that. I appreciate that it takes bravery to speak out against your own government, but many Labour MPs were prepared to. Many of us in this chamber want all of us to do so too. I'm not convinced, however, that representations on the basis of Labour's amendment will really get across the full sense of the outrage and frustration that we should rightly feel about that parliamentary debacle. So we have a choice here this evening, members of this chamber, conscious that the next argument that the Labour government appears to want to pick is on special educational needs funding. Let's stand up. Let's say that welfare reform bill was a disaster. Let's say with one unified voice that it should never have happened like that we should never have placed disabled people in that position with the current uncertainty that they still face, even with those climb downs that we saw last week. Let's say loud and clear, the government must do better. The welfare reform bill is deeply unsatisfactory, and Newcastle is clear on that.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Be seconded by Councillor Huddard.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's very little that I can say that will add to what Councillor Ferguson has said. It is not easy to understand why this bill was brought forward in this way, or who will gain from it. So it's not easy to agree to it. It's a nothing kind of a bill, isn't it? It doesn't improve anybody. It doesn't improve Labour's standing. And it doesn't really enhance the opinion of elderly, disabled, etc. people. It just doesn't do you justice. And if you had any sense, you'd abstain from this and vote against it and tell your MPs to vote against it as well. It is, well, just support us on this occasion and be brave. Thank you.
There are two amendments. Can I call on Councillor Hartley to move his amendment to be seconded by Councillor Musharraf?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Liberal Democrats for bringing this motion. This is a friendly amendment that we're bringing, and Councillor Ferguson is right to point out that we are, as a party, calling for a wealth tax. We need to be bold. We need to balance this economy, not on the backs of the poorest, but recognise that money in the hands of the wealthy is not helping the economy, is not helping people. And I hope that there's many in this room that will agree with me on that and can vote with us on this amendment. I just want to set some context on the other parts of the amendment. So, working as a clinical psychologist, there were many personal stories I came across that took me down the route of getting involved in politics. And I want to briefly tell you about one of them to underline how important this issue is and why Liz Kendall and the government failed to understand the challenges around how to support people with mental and physical health difficulties, and why we need that much fairer economy to fix the rot that has set in as a consequence of cuts, privatisation and growing inequality. Now, this person gave me permission to tell his story. More than that, he really wanted it to be told. This is a story of a man who faced much early trauma in his life, a victim of abuse and neglect, a creative soul who was able to contribute much to the world through music, which he found was a form of expression and release, but which also brought him into contact with the world of heroin. By the time I met this man, he was having success with the methadone programme and was now looking to rescript some of his traumatic experiences so that he could return to contributing to the world in a meaningful way. Now, we know from Skimstone Arts and Chile Arts to the Recovery College Collective, there are many great charities and organisations out there in Newcastle that help people with creative talents who are struggling with their mental health. Now, this man so wanted to do this, but the mistrust and paranoia he had built up over a life of being kicked and let down made this feel so far out of his reach. He threw himself into therapy. He took the risk to trust me and to open up. Through trauma-focused therapy, this man started to let some light back into his life. He began to reconnect with a friend, he started to take more care of his home and found a way of picking up his guitar again and finding a way to cope with the enormous emotional pain that came with that. It felt like we were building hope and a new start. And then the envelope lands. And you all know the painful stories around the capability assessments, which Liz Kendall has acknowledged must be scrapped. But what Labour must also change is the cruel and hostile environment that people with disabilities face. There is still a simplistic view within the Labour Party, as seen clearly by the language of Liz Kendall, that work is always the answer. And look, I mean, I'm glad that Labour appear to accept the need to meet with that work is always the answer, and I'm glad that Labour appear to accept the need to meet with campaigning groups such as Crips Against Cuts to talk about this issue. Now, there's a lot of research showing that good work can absolutely build a meaningful life, work in which we are able to act on our values, contribute to society, have agency and autonomy, a sense of progress. Work, however, which is simply making super wealthy people even wealthier, work in which choice and agency are absent, that kind of work, which the late David Graeber wrote so well about, can harm, especially when people are already facing trauma and mental ill health. So back to the man at the centre of my story. When he was told that because he was able to make it to therapy, it shows he can cope with complex emotional demands. When he was told that because he can care for his home and make it to the shop for milk, he is able to cope with physical demands. When he was told that the progress he had made with reconnecting with friends showed he was able to be around people, he felt he was being punished for the progress he had made. Therapy had led to the state saying, "We've helped, now help yourself, get to work." I trust you can all see the way such an approach backfires, how it pushes people further away from health, meaning, and yes, a return to work. People need space to heal and enough money to pay the bills and have a decent life. And that's what this amendment calls for. It calls for a fairer deal, a modest wealth tax and investment into the lives of ordinary people who need money the most, which would improve health outcomes, and as more money is circulating in the economy, help growth and business too. Penny pinching dressed up as a loving boot doesn't achieve that. And that's what I see Labour's well-formed reforms as being about. Let's make the government listen and act. We could chart a better future.
Councillor Musharraf to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, thank you, my Lib Dem colleagues, to bring this emergency motion out. And thank you, Councillor Hartley, to bring the amendments in. We just need to see why we did these friendly amendments. If you look at last council session, we all agreed about we all agreed that motion to vote by food and solidarity, and it gives us a solid platform to see that how closely we can work together in a specific issue. And it is welfare reform motion. It is just a making of a disaster which somehow has stopped. Sorry, apologies. Has been referred to. What we are calling to see, actually, to speak to all of our local community groups and activist groups to see what is the best and what is needed to be done. And in regards to the objection of welfare wealth tax, it is only necessary. if you look at what we are looking for is super rich, £10 million or more, charging them 1% extra tax, or £1 billion or so, 2%. If you look at the context of it, if you put £100 notes to every seat in St James Park, and also you can add Stadium of Light, we are taking away only 1,000 seats. So it is what it is. This is what we are asking for. And why we want to do it, or what we are asking for? Because we can use it for our future of our children. We can use it to fix our transport system. We can use to provide a clean, cheaper energy for everyone. So it is not something which is going to hold and which is going to benefit us in our longer growth and in the community, because at the end of the day we are all in the part of the same fabric of our society, and we need to keep an eye and for the well-being of everyone. And as my colleague Nick Hartley has laid down, only thing I can just add on to further to that is it's not only about the numbers, and it's not only about the money and the economical growth. It's also the human cost. When you talk about a bill, when you talk about a policy, sometimes we just take our eyes off from the human cost on top of all of that. And this is what we need to look at. The question is, are we going to stand up for that right of the human, or are we going to keep let the most vulnerable in the society to suffer even longer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call on Councillor Walker to move the second amendment, please? To be seconded by Councillor Story.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Ferguson for bringing this motion to Council tonight. I think it's right that we get the chance to discuss this here and tonight and in this room. I first just wanted, though, to reassure members opposite. Our amendment is not an attempt to change the motion. We just want to strengthen that and address some inaccuracies. In principle, I agree with much of the motion. However, in its current form, it would be difficult to support, and wanted to highlight some of the changes we've made, which we hope members will agree has been constructive. I also feel it's important to highlight and share some of the things we're doing here in Newcastle. For example, our Welfare Rights Service last year alone secured £14.6 million worth of benefit gains for residents. This equates to just over £2,000 per client who received help from the service. The team within the council is a vital resource and lifeline to so many, and goes to show how this council will always put the needs of our most vulnerable residents first. I agree with Councillor Ferguson, so let's pass a motion that is unanimous across the chamber, that we can build on the things we have control of in this chamber. So I urge members to support the amendment tonight.
Thank you very much. Councillor Story.
Lord Mayor, Council, like my colleague Councillor Walker, I want to put on record thanks to Councillor Ferguson for bringing the motion. I am formally seconding the amendment brought forward by Councillor Walker for the very reasons that he states, just to adjust some inaccuracies, but also to really highlight the exceptional work that has taken place locally. We try so hard right the way across the chamber to do everything that we can for our residents, and I really want that to go on record. And in particular, the area that I work in and lead, children and young people, all of the work that we've done on free school meals, I think it's just really important that we highlight as local councillors what we're doing locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the debate. Can I call on Councillor Chisholm, and can Councillor Stone please stand ready?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So one thing I want to talk about, I think, is I want to talk a bit about how do we end up in this situation? How do we end up with a Labour government bringing this legislation that we all seem to be pushing back against in this? And I think there's a bigger, deeper question. I thought that when the motion was proposed, it was argued in quite crude history of the Department of Work and Pensions and the Department of Social Security before that, and the way they treated disabled people. I have been involved in lobbying these people nationally and done a lot of work in this arena. And if people have got the time, there's a great memoir by a former disability rights campaigner, Bernard Massey, who talks about the change in the culture in the DWP that happened at the time of Peter Lilly. You may remember him singing Gilbert and Sullivan songs and attacking people with disabilities back in the 80s. And what he argues in that book is that something changed in the DWP at that point. And in fact, over the years, these things have come back and back and back, where an agenda around austerity and welfare reform that is not part of the kind of progressive engagement with people with disabilities keeps coming back in the DWP, and I think that's what's happened. I think that this Kendall and bits of the government were captured by that narrative. I've seen those people in action. And actually, if you think back to the beginning of the last Labour government, one of the first things they did was cut benefits for single parents. There was a load of stuff in the tabloid press about single parents. The Labour ministers wanted to be tough on benefits, and actually within 2 years the measure had been withdrawn, and we had Sure Start, and we had a load of work that was much better. So I very much regret what's happened to the DWP, and I very much regret them capturing some of the narrative that the Labour Party has adopted. But it's a bit deeper and more complicated. There has been some discussion about abolishing the DWP. I think that might be quite hard to deliver to reorganise the benefit system. And when people are thinking about, if you want to influence policy change, and if you want to change the benefit system, you need to do a bit more really than shrill, binary party political comments. You need to deal with the deeper questions. I'm very concerned about the debate about this welfare reform bill and the way people have talked about the benefits system being broken in a particular way. And it's very difficult for me to talk about this because, of course, I'm personally affected as a legally blind person. I'm reliant on supports of the benefit system, and it's not as easy for me as it is for other people in this chamber to get up and make tough, thumping speeches about it because I'm personally affected and I know the trauma of having those benefits under threat, and it's been very, very difficult. And I think that when people are making speeches, they should acknowledge that you're talking about real people with very real concerns.
Can you sum up, please?
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, Lord Mayor. It's difficult for me to see my notes, so I sometimes take a bit longer. If you could just spare me a second. Well, I'll just mention, so the leader of the has appointed me the Council's Disabilities Champion, and I'm doing some work with disabled organisations, and I'll be coming back to Council and reporting on it. And I like the way that in the discussion on this bill, we're now talking about involving disabled people. We have this slogan, nothing about us without us, and I think you'll be hearing more. There's all sorts of things going on in the city around planning and city where there are great improvements that we can make, and we'll be doing that. So I'm very angry about this bill, and I'm very pleased that the Labour Party rebels have the capacity to push most of it back. There's some lessons there about how you make positive change in this country, and I support the motion as amended.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes? Thank you very much, Councillor Willock. Can Councillor Powers stand by? Councillor Stone?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In the interests of Councillor Chisholm just made the challenge on this one, but I would wish to declare that my partner is a recipient of PIP being disabled. She works as a care worker with disabled people, but she is affected by this in that capacity. I want to make the point that whilst we have been debating this issue here in this chamber tonight, the bill has had its third reading in Parliament. It is passed by a considerable majority of Labour MPs. I give notice and give respect to 47 Labour MPs who have voted against this, but for Councillor Chisholm to claim that we can make changes by campaigning for it in this chamber, I think that he's a little bit behind the times in terms of what's actually happening in Westminster at the minute, because his government has just voted it through. I very rarely cite Richard Bergen in my speeches, but I will do so tonight because I liked his particular comments earlier. He noted that today MPs have voted on cutting £3,000 a year from £750,000 low-income, sick and disabled people deemed too ill to work. That's a £2 billion cut. That is what the government has snuck through this tonight. That is what they have delivered. If that is what you came into politics to deliver, I would ask you to question your consciences, because it's not what I came into politics to deliver, not by any stretch. There needs to be welfare reform, yes, but we do not do this by hitting the poorest and the most vulnerable in our city the hardest, and that is what you have done tonight. I remember an administration opposite standing up and saying that their priority would be to protect the most vulnerable in the city at all times. Well, that has gone. The Labour Party has changed. The Labour Party has rejected that. That is no longer your policy. That's no longer what you practice. That needs to be exposed and challenged, and we will be doing that, and we will lead that debate in this city because you are not capable of doing it. I want to say, finally, though, I want to mention Mary Glindon in this because I've known Mary for a number of years. I don't regard her as being a brilliant MP for my constituency, but I think she's done the right thing. She's done the honourable thing. She's done the brave thing by standing up opposing this. She's the only one of your 5 MPs that you claim in the city that actually did the right thing by people in Newcastle and Newcastle East. The other 4 couldn't or wouldn't do that. They may have other priorities. I'm sure they know very well what this means for their constituents, because they will know what this means for people who are disabled and receiving that benefit now in the city. I'm sure they talk to them. I'm sure they're aware of them. I'm sure they know about them, but they've decided not to do anything about that tonight. They would rather have their DBE commemorated and praised, I'm sure, but in Newcastle Central and West there are many, many thousands of people who will be hit by this, and it affects them very, very greatly, and their MP has not supported them on this. And the same is true for Newcastle North, the same is true for Cramlington and Killingworth, the same is true for the Hexham part of the constituency that comes into Newcastle. So this is an issue where Labour have changed their tune considerably from where they used to be. This is not something that they can be proud of. This is not something they should be trying to claim as a triumph. There does need to be welfare reform, and there should be changes into that. That's the way that it is delivered. I get that argument, but the way you have done this is by hitting the people who are most vulnerable and suffering the most. You've turned your backs on them today, and I hope you will not do that in the vote tonight. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Lord Mayor?
Yes?
Point of order. I'd like to request that we suspend the guillotine, particularly in the light of the emergency motion around Gaza, which is a really sensitive issue that I think should be debated.
Yeah. Right. Is that agreed? No. No? We need a vote? What? Right. Councillor Burns? Do you only want to suspend the guillotine just for that motion or for all of the items?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, to clarify for everything.
Okay. Right, okay. Thank you. Right. Okay, well, we'll go to a vote. Linda, are you guys? Yeah. It's okay, we'll come to you, don't worry. Nice to see you back in the chamber, by the way. Has everybody who was able to vote electronically voted electronically? Before we come to the ones who haven't managed to vote electronically. Right. So, Linda, can you close the electronic vote. Given that? So I'll now ask for a show of hands. Everybody who didn't vote electronically, who is in favour of suspending the guillotine, please show. You got that? Yeah. Right, thank you very much. Those of you who weren't able to vote electronically and who are against doing it, can you please show? You got them? Thank you. Is anybody abstaining? No. Okay. Can we have the results, please? Okay. There were 30 votes in favour and 31 against. So we won't be suspending the guillotine. So we're still in time. So it's now Councillor Powers, your turn to speak.
Raise a point. I can't words up. Sorry, apologies. Same point. However, this side would like to extend the guillotine so we ensure that the emergency motion on Gaza is heard and then the guillotine fall.
Right. Okay. Is that agreed? Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Powers. And, well, we're still discussing the first motion, Councillor Powers, and you're next. And I have here that Councillor Morrissey is speaking next. Is that Councillor PJ Morrissey? No. All right. Well, yeah, that's fine. Well, can Councillor Rahman stand by, please? Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First, I should state a declaration that my mum is disabled and would be affected by changes to welfare support. Thank you. I'm speaking in support of the Amendment 2, which presents a considered and constructive response to the government's welfare reform. What I won't be doing is politically point scoring on the backs of disabled people. I have greater respect for people than that. Let me be clear. As a disabled person, as someone who represents disabled people on Unison's National Disabled Members Committee, as someone who's co-founded and led campaigns against unfair welfare reforms, who has championed spending on welfare rights projects to support disabled people as a councillor, and no one else on this side of the chamber is under any illusion about the enormous challenges being faced by disabled people, unpaid carers, and those navigating the welfare system. Many residents in Newcastle continue to experience deep financial insecurity, complex bureaucracy and a rise of cost of living, all of which as a council we have worked tirelessly to support them through. This amendment does not ignore the concerns raised in the welfare bill. It acknowledges that while there are elements of the bill which offer genuine improvements, which Councillor Huddard should make herself aware of, that disabled groups have campaigned for years, such as the removal of repeated PIP assessments and the horror show that my mum has gone through every time she's had to have one, and the right to try, giving disabled people the opportunity to attempt work without the fear of using benefits. However, there does still remain serious and legitimate concerns about the implementation, clarity and potential unintended consequences of these reforms. Lord Mayor, the last-minute nature of concessions and the £5 billion black hole that they now face are clear indications of poor planning. What this amendment does not, and why I support it, what this amendment does and why I support it, is recognise that we must engage constructively. The answer is not to simply oppose for the sake of opposition or for political point scoring on the backs of disabled people, but to shape outcomes, to hold the government to account while working with them, and most importantly, to continue to support the residents through practical, real-world support and advocacy. The amendment also rightly celebrates the work of Newcastle's welfare rights team, who have been an anchor for thousands of tenants in this city, residents of this city. Their expertise and compassion in navigating the complex system is vital, and they should be recognised and supported in the months ahead. We cannot fix national welfare policy in this chamber today, but what we can do is ensure that the Council clearly communicates its position and concerns to ministers and local MPs, work alongside disability charities to mitigate harm, seek clarity on funding, practicality, and particularly to support local support services, and meet directly with campaigners such as the Crips Against Cups to understand how these challenges affect people on the ground and what more we can do. Lord Mayor, Amendment 2 does not water down our concerns, it focuses them. It gives us a platform to push for a fairer, more compassionate welfare system, while also engaging with the practical steps that may deliver some benefit. Before I close, I'd just like to clarify a couple of points raised in other versions of this motion. For the record, Newcastle is currently represented by 5 MPs, not 3, and to address Councillor Fergus's point why this is important, because we should accurately be stating how our city is represented in Parliament when we're seeking to lobby them. Additionally, while earlier versions of the bill were forecast to push 150,000 people into poverty, updated independent analysis now suggests that around 50,000 people may be lifted out of the poverty due to concessions. Though we absolutely recognise that others will still face losses, particularly disabled people and unpaid carers, I mention these not to distract from the legitimate concern, but because our response is strongest when it's rooted in facts. I urge colleagues to support Amendment 2, not because it's perfect, but it's principled, it's measured, and ultimately focused on the people that we are here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powers. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Ferguson for bringing this motion. You know what, listening to some of the conversations, certainly from the left side, compelled me to speak. And I'll say this to the Labour colleagues and the administration. There's nothing right about this bill, man. It's a terrible bill for a Labour government to bring. So let's not get behind and hide. If you do have the courage, just admit that. All the MPs, only 2 from the North East who had the courage to stand up at Parliament to vote against that. Solidarity with those. Now, we've heard reference being made how this council is offering investing in providing welfare support to our constituents. Let's not forget each of the ward funding that each of the wards are receiving, we are having to use some of that. And it's a clear indication how desperately poor our residents will be on the back of a Labour government's terrible bill that's coming in. Disgraceful.
And finally, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to draw Council's attention to one line in the motion, which the Labour amendment would delete. The proposals that this will be a hammer blow for unpaid carers. Because deleting that language is not just tidying up, it is not just explaining, it is a demonstration of the fact that the Labour Party continue to not understand the politics of this. And yes, this is a political issue, and if you believed in what you said, you would have brought an amendment that condemned those Labour MPs who continue to support this legislation, telling the government to withdraw it, and actually stood up for the people of Newcastle. This is not about explaining, this is not about details, this is about you, if Keir Starmer won't, admitting that they are wrong, they need to go back to the drawing board and start again, and nothing else will make this up to the people who are going to suffer.
Thank you very much. Can I call on Councillor Ferguson to reply to the debate?
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, could people please make sure that they're regulating the volume at which they're speaking in their speeches, please? There may be some people in this room who are affected by especially male voices speaking at loud volumes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to colleagues across the Chamber for their contributions in this debate. Far more contributions than I can reasonably respond to each in turn. But I wanted to pick up a few of the points that have just been raised there. Firstly, because it came chronologically first, I want to thank Councillor Hartley for the powerful individual account that he shared with us. I think it's really important that we don't forget that individual people are in the middle of all of this. And I think that also speaks to the point that Councillor Chisholm made, which I absolutely acknowledge. I think one of the important things for us to remember is that if any one of us sitting here is not disabled, we're lucky. And we might not be so forever. And so it is important that we all think about this. I absolutely accept, fair enough, we should have included all 5 of the MPs for Newcastle. So I'm happy to clarify on the record that 80% of Labour's MPs in the city voted for this bill. 80%. Fair enough. The Lib Dems, by contrast, led opposition to the bill in the House of Lords. Just at the start of this week, they revealed through a parliamentary question that one person has waited 393 days for an access to work application to be processed. See, the Lib Dems want to see reforms to these matters, a proper response to the crisis in the NHS, a proper recognition of care, paid and unpaid. That is how to support people into work, not the threat of a stick at some point in the future after reforms have been passed and considered then by Stephen Timms. I appreciate that Labour want their amendment to be friendly, but they talk about inaccuracies. What are the inaccuracies? Is it that two-tier approaches aren't morally indefensible? Is it that unpaid carers aren't really relevant? I can't believe that's the case. And what exactly do they want to clearly communicate with the language in their amendment? Yeah, this is all a wee bit, meh, try harder. Absolutely not, we say. Let me return to people, and in particular to the idea that to raise any objection to this is political point scoring. I've just spoken to someone in the public gallery this evening who has come along to hear this debate, and with your forgiveness, Mr. Turner, I'm not going to repeat the exact language you used because I'm not sure I'm allowed to, but I would urge all of my Labour colleagues to have a word with him and others who have come to hear this evening, because what they will hear clearly is that when they see that party opposite celebrating Chion Mura getting a damehood whilst voting for this bill, whenever they see that they haven't yet met the representative groups that our motions are calling for, and that people are angry. This isn't just concern, this isn't just worry, it's anger, it is frustration that Labour aren't listening.
Can you finish up, Councillor Ferguson?
I will, Lord Mayor. So let me be clear. The original motion, as it stands, puts the language as it needs to be. This is morally indefensible. It is plain, straight, wrong. Let's tell the government that. Let's get them to listen.
Okay. Is the First Amendment agreed?
Agreed.
No, right. Okay. We'll need a vote. Linda, can we start the go vote system? Has everybody had a chance to vote who can? Yes? Can we close the vote then, Linda? And I'll move on to those who haven't been able to vote electronically. Are you ready? Okay. Right, those of you who didn't vote electronically, if you're in favour of the amendment, please show now, please. Okay. Those against, please show now, please. That was 10 for and 52 against. So that amendment falls. Now we move on to the second amendment. Is that agreed? Okay. Linda, can we start the voting on this one, please? Does everybody have the chance to vote who can vote electronically? Yes? Can we close that one, please? Yeah, okay. Right, those of you who weren't able to vote electronically, if you're in favour of the amendment, can you please show now? Okay. Those of you against? Oh, sorry, is any abstentions? We've got your votes for... Oh, anybody is abstaining? Right. So there were 31 votes in favour of the amendment and 30 against. So the amendment is carried. So does Council agree the substantive motion as amended? No. Okay. So we need another vote. Everybody has a chance to vote? Yes? Who can vote? Right, can we close that? Okay. Right, those of you who weren't able to vote electronically, please show now if you're in favour of the motion as amended. That was timing. Okay, thank you. Those against, please show now. Right. No. Anybody positively abstaining? No? Okay. Okay, there are 31 in favour of the motion and 30 against, so the amended motion is carried. Thank you, Council. As we know, the guillotine has been suspended until the end of the next business, which is an emergency notion of motion, government action on Gaza. Can I call on Councillor Iram Ali to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Keynes?
First of all, thank you very much for allowing this as an emergency motion and extending the guillotine to debate it. Lord Mayor, councillors and members of the public. The war in Gaza has resulted in untold suffering. Thousands killed, countless more displaced, homes reduced to rubble, basic infrastructure systematically destroyed, hospitals overwhelmed, medical supplies desperately short, and children, the most vulnerable, bear scars that will last a lifetime. As bombs continue to fall and the blockade persists, the world watches, often in dismay, sometimes in silence, too frequently in complicity. It is this complicity that I wish to address today, specifically the role played by the UK in the perpetuation of this conflict. Lord Mayor, to understand the present, we must first examine the past. The UK has a long and complex history in the Middle East, dating back to the era of the British Mandate. Decisions made under colonial rule have set the stage for many of today's conflicts, and our nation's involvement in the region endures through economic, military and diplomatic channels. Today, the UK plays a significant role in shaping the future of the Middle East. It has the power to influence outcomes, and with that power, a corresponding responsibility to ensure that policies uphold the principles of international law and moral integrity. One of the UK's complicities referred to in the motion is through its continued sale of arms and military equipment. Reports from organisations including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have highlighted that British-made weapons and components have been found in conflict zones, contributing to the destruction we see today. While the government insists that it operates a robust export control regime, we must ask whether these regulations are sufficient, or indeed whether they are being adequately enforced. When there is a credible risk that UK-supplied weapons may be used to commit or facilitate violations of international humanitarian law, it is not enough to rely on assurances or bureaucratic processes. We must therefore ask for transparency, accountability, and above all, a halt and suspension to the export of weapons to any party credibly accused of war crimes. But complicity is not measured by arms sales alone, Lord Mayor. It is also evident in the language that we use, the diplomatic positions we adopt, and the international forums where we represent. It all carries significant weight. The UK, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, has a unique platform and a profound responsibility. It must use it to enjoin the truth and forbid evil. International law is unequivocal in its protection of civilians during times of war. The Geneva Conventions, to which the UK is a signatory, places clear obligations on states to refrain from actions that contribute to war crimes or crimes against humanity. By failing to halt arms exports, the UK risks violating not only its moral duties, but also its legal obligations. Furthermore, complicity undermines the credibility of the UK as a defender of human rights and democracy. How then can we speak with moral authority on the world stage when our own actions fall short of the standards we espouse? While foreign policy is set by national government, local councils and communities have an important voice and role to play. We can pass motions, make public statements, and join a growing movement calling for an end to the UK's complicity. Civil society across the UK has already spoken out, through marches, petitions and activism, demanding change. It is our duty to amplify these voices, to make it clear that silence is not neutrality, and neutrality in the face of oppression is itself a form of complicity. Let us not be remembered as bystanders. Let us be remembered as those who spoke out, who took a stand, and who demanded that the UK lives up to its highest ideals. Let us be on the right side of history, as our history will define our future. I urge you to support this motion and agree to its call to action, and I look forward to hearing members' views. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. To be seconded by Councillor Keynes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A healthcare worker working in Gaza recently commented that if Cambodia was the killing fields, then Gaza is now the slaughterhouse. A recent example of Israeli forces' use of weapons in Gaza was the dropping of a 230-kilogram, 500-pound bomb on a crowded beachfront cafe, the Al-Baka. The cafe was obliterated without warning in an area which had received no evacuation orders. It killed at least 30 Palestinian civilians, mainly women and children, and a significant group of Palestinian journalists, filmmakers and local artists. Doctors working in the Skeleton Health Service in Gaza describe a pattern of sniper wounds experienced by 11 to 13-year-old children in particular. The Israeli snipers are playing, shooting children one day mainly in the head, another in the knee or ankle. Another day it might be chest wounds. British surgeon Nizam Mahmood recently testified to a British parliamentary committee about his experiences in Gaza. He stated that he had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents each day. What was particularly disturbing was how these were described by the injured. A bomb would drop on a crowded tented area and drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. He described day after day of operating on children who would say, "I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down, hovered over me and shot me." That's quite clearly a deliberate act, a persistent act of targeting civilians, targeting children on a daily basis. It illustrates the technology of genocide in action. There was also a recurring pattern described by doctors of children shot in the chest and in the temple by snipers. No child gets shot twice by a sniper by mistake. This is children being deliberately targeted. The World Health Authority's Director General, Tekos Ghebreyesus, stated recently, "We do not need to wait for a famine to be declared in Gaza. We know people are already starving and sick, dying whilst food and medicines are minutes across the border. If the situation persists, nearly 71,000 children under 5 are expected to be severely malnourished. Malnutrition and disease fuel each other. Pregnant women are at high risk, while breastfeeding mothers are too malnourished to feed their babies. Clean water is scarce and baby formula is not being allowed into Gaza." The UN described Gaza as the hungriest place on earth and one of the most obstructed aid operations in recent history. Denial of aid, of medical supplies and food, of medical care and targeting of health workers is depriving Palestinians of everything they need to survive. Edward Said stated that Palestinians were a symbol for justice and resistance in the face of overwhelming odds. Angela Davis described Palestine as the moral litmus test of the world. I second and ask you to support.
Thank you very much. I'll call on Councillor Hartley, and can Councillor Qureshi please stand by?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I remember waking up on the morning of October the 7th, 2023, feeling absolutely desperate as we heard the news coming in from Israel. Barbarism and butchery on a scale that was hard for our minds to make sense of in modern times. There was also a familiar sense of foreboding, distress for the families affected in Israel, and also a terror of what the world worried was about to unfold in Gaza. The wars between Israel and Palestine did not begin on October the 7th, and the history is complicated, but we all know that anti-Muslim hate and anti-Semitism are causing so much harm and damage. We also know that British and American government policy is implicated in the genocide that has happened and is happening in Gaza. The barbarism and butchery in Gaza we are seeing played out daily on our TV screens is not something we can stay silent on. I am also seriously concerned by the way in which elements of the far right in Britain have sought to use this as an opportunity to stir up more anti-Muslim hate and racism in the UK. Misinformation about Islam is being used to sow division in society, and I implore anyone listening to this who disagrees with me to go to a mosque, meet imams, see the community-oriented, peaceful work that so many Muslims in our communities are doing to push back against an increasingly individualised, atomised society. Like our many faith groups across the UK, Muslims are taking and supporting our British values. They're not taking them away, they're defending them. I am glad that the Labour group have finally been able to bring this motion today. The Green Party have stood on the side of peace and a two-state solution throughout our history, and we're calling for a ceasefire and release of all the hostages as soon as the response from Israel became clear in October 2023. Now, this morning, Councillor Musharraf submitted an amendment on this motion on a local issue about the arms factory on Scotswood Road, and we shared that with group leaders. Since I was elected as leader of the Green Group last year, I've received much correspondence on this issue, and both Councillor Musharraf and myself have done what we can to find out more about the facts, and we'll keep on pushing. And I was really concerned that a recent attempt by People Against Raphael to shed light on this situation by bringing a petition of 2,964 residents to full council was refused last month on the grounds it was discussed in the recent past, despite new information coming to light. Now, with great respect to Councillor Ali and Councillor Cairns for bringing this motion, our Green Group's fear, was that this motion today could push this petition back further. This is why we brought an amendment in line with the asks of the People Against Raphael petition. Now, following conversations between Councillor Ali and myself earlier today, and thank you for your time, we have been assured that Councillor Ali will meet with us and campaigners from People Against Raphael and ensure residents of the city are heard by the proposer of this motion and in her role as a Cabinet Member for Communities. And on this basis, we agreed to withdraw our amendment. But I hope and I trust that we can work hard to build future cross-party motion on this issue, shed light on what is going on Scotswood Road, and make sure that that petition is heard by this council. I hope we can do all in our power to do that. The Green Party, very quickly, the Green Party is a collaborative party that will work with you to pursue meaningful change. As Councillor Musharraf said to me earlier, it's just such a shame it's taken this long to bring this motion to council. And we stand in solidarity with everyone lost in this genocide. We must not let people down. Thank you.
Thank you. Can Councillor Ferguson stand ready? Councillor Qureshi?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I speak today with a heavy heart at the ongoing tragedy unfolding before our very eyes in Gaza. We must have the moral clarity to call out the collective punishment of over 2 million people. A humanitarian catastrophe of staggering proportions, a genocide. We cannot speak in the passive voice while an entire people are dehumanised, displaced and destroyed. Entire families are being wiped from the civil registry, children routinely pulled from the rubble, hospitals, schools, places of worship bombed without mercy. What we are seeing is not the collateral damage of war, it is the systematic destruction of a people's ability to live, to survive, to merely exist. An unimaginable number of Palestinians, the overwhelming majority of them innocent civilians, are dead. Thousands more are injured and traumatised beyond measure. Babies are born into tents. Children are grown up knowing only hunger and fear, parents in total despair. These circumstances are beyond just statistics. These are lives. Human beings with names, with dreams, with the same rights to safety, dignity and peace that every one of us in this chamber would want for our families. Our city is built on compassion and solidarity, a city of sanctuary. Those values compel us to speak out and not be silent while this suffering continues. We cannot look away and pretend we don't see what's happening. Our silence would be complicity. This is why the motion matters, because it says not in our name. It says we expect our government to match words with action, to suspend arms licences where there is a clear risk of complicity in the killing of civilians, to call for a permanent and lasting ceasefire, and to demand the full, unconditional access for humanitarian agencies into Gaza and the occupied territories. I urge everyone here tonight to support this motion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can Councillor Shatwell please stand ready? Councillor Ferguson.
Lord Mayor, the Liberal Democrats' position on the Israel-Gaza conflict is clear. It has been clear for a long time. Our hearts break at the scenes we see. Our concerns continue about people in this city who might feel vulnerable as a result. Only a political and diplomatic solution, not a military one, will resolve this conflict, get Hamas out of power, secure vital humanitarian aid, and deliver a lasting peace. A two-state solution is the only way to deliver the dignity and security which Palestinians and Israelis deserve. An immediate bilateral ceasefire is desperately needed. Our MPs have been unequivocal, led powerfully by Layla Moran, the first MP of Palestinian descent, and by our Leader in Parliament, Ed Davey. As recently as last month, Ed raised the humanitarian situation in Gaza at Prime Minister's questions and led an early day motion signed by all Liberal Democrat MPs demanding the UK's commitment to Palestinians' right to self-determination and a two-state solution as the only just political settlement. As those of us who watch this conflict closely know, language matters. My own upbringing in Belfast, which I referred to the last time we debated this topic, taught me that words matter, that specific commitments, demands and priorities matter to the communities they will affect. Getting that specificity right takes time. There is much to be lauded in the motion as submitted, but it differs in key respects from our party's position, which has been developed thoughtfully over time with Palestinians and Israelis. It isn't possible to secure the nuance required to resolve the points of difference between our position and this motion with only a little over 24 hours notice, unfortunately. And we regret that we didn't see this motion last week to be able to consider it more fully. And so I reiterate the Liberal Democrats' specific call, in the context of this motion, that the government enacts a presumption of denial for arms exports to governments listed by the Foreign Office as human rights priorities, and therefore immediately suspends arms exports to Israel, in accordance with similar decisions taken by previous UK governments of all political parties. But on this specific motion, we will abstain.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Can Councillor Rahman stand ready? Councillor Shatwell.
Thank you for bringing this emergency motion to Council. This is and has been an emergency for over 20 months. In that time, Wingrove residents have signed petitions and asked public questions in this very chamber for us to lobby government for an immediate ceasefire, to stop the occupation and end arms supplies to Israel. A Palestinian resident from Wingrove reminded us, don't stop talking about Palestine, don't stop talking about Gaza, we need you. Lord Mayor, it's welcome today that this chamber is talking about Gaza as our residents need us to. We need to talk about the ongoing genocidal killing of tens of thousands of civilians and children in Gaza. We need to talk about ending Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. And we need to hear about the devastating impact the genocide is having on Palestinian residents and Muslim communities in Newcastle and show solidarity with them. The motion also calls for the suspension of all arms licences and arms sales to Israel. Despite the suspension of around 30 licences by the government in September, 200 arms licences remain in place, including for the F-35 fighter jet. And since September, reports do suggest over 8,000 items were exported to Israel under the category of bombs, grenades, torpedoes, and missiles. These are the very fighter jets that are firing the weapons and dropping the bombs that are killing thousands of children. The message is clear: we must stop supplying arms to a regime that kills children. I want to end with the voice of a Wingrove Palestinian resident, 8-year-old Mustafa, himself a child. He longs to return to Gaza to see his cousins and friends. In his words, I feel sad because I can go to school and return home safely, while Palestinian children, if they can go to school, there's a great chance they won't come back alive because of the Israeli army. I feel sad because I wake up to the voice and touch of my mother, while a child in Palestine wakes up to the sound of bombs and bullets. Let's join hands to lend our aid to the children of Gaza, unafraid to give them a future safe and bright, and fill their world with love and light. For every child, no matter where, deserves a life beyond despair. And Gazans' land, let's all agree and help them live to be truly free. Mustafa also has a message for the IDF. All your armies, all your fighters, all your tanks and all your soldiers are against a boy holding a stone, standing there alone. In his eyes, I see the sun. In his smile, I see the moon. And I only wonder, who is weak and who is strong, who is right and who is wrong. I only wish, if the truth has a tongue. Stop killing children, stop killing mothers, stop killing fathers, and stop killing all humans. Stop bombing Gaza. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Will Councillor Nabila Ali please stand ready? Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's brilliant to hear on the back of Councillor Hartley confirming Councillor Ali has agreed to meet up with activists on the Raphael factory. Let us not talk about what the council can't do, but let's look at what it can. Can I thank Councillor Ali and Councillor Keynes for bringing this motion to the council, and respect to you for having the courage to put on the kafaya and coming out and presenting this. It is the Labour government who is stripping that right for activists to come out on a peaceful demonstration wearing the kafaya or the Palestinian flag, labelling them as criminals and terrorists. So I, for one, hope the whip does not impact or affect you. Coming to the point, 21 months, Council, 21 months of barbaric attack on innocent children and babies, murdering 60,000 people with the full support of Labour leader Keir Starmer to this Israeli brutality and the genocide. Keir Starmer and Labour have blood in your hand. That's what you have, blood in your hand. It took you 21 months, 60,000 babies' death to bring this motion to this council. Disgraceful.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Today I speak not just as a councillor, but as a human being who is deeply disturbed by the horrors unfolding in Gaza. We all have seen images of children buried in rubble. Hospitals have no first aid. Families are starving with no clean water. This is not just heartbreaking, this is unlawful. Today's motion is not about taking sides, it's about law, logic, morality, responsibility, and the most, our credibility on the world stage. Let me begin with the legal foundations. UK is fully aware if a country who is signatory to Consolidated EU and National Arms Export Licensing Criteria, the Arms Trade Treaty and the Geneva Conventions, if the arms are exported from these countries and they are used to attack civilian and that results casualties, that country becomes legally complicit. The UK law is very clear. Our government must refuse and revoke all the licenses which may cause or may result the British weapons to be used to attack on innocent people and cause casualties, and they are used in violation of national and international laws. We are not asking anything new. UK has been doing this. There were 232 licenses which were cancelled and 34 licenses which were suspended. When Gaza conflict started, right in the beginning of just first 7 months, 108 licenses were issued to Israel to attack Gaza. In 2019, UK suspended arms sales to Saudi Arabia in the war in Yemen after the landmark decision of the Court of Appeal ruling that arms sale was illegal due to civilians' death, war crime, and legal concerns. In contrast, for the same reasons, we have a same ruling. We have a ruling from the High Court, and it says it's the Parliament that has to decide if the arms export is legal or illegal, and it's up to them should they continue it or stop it. I believe it's not radical to ask what makes it different when it comes to Gaza, when 250 people are dying every single day. We must not risk our credibility on the face of world stage by defending as a defender of human rights, just by being selective in compliance with the national and international laws.
Can you sum up, please?
Okay. I will demand, and we demand, government to act in compliance with the laws to make UK correct and legal. And I will urge the colleagues, please support this motion. By supporting this motion, you are promoting peace over genocide. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Iramali to reply to the debate, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just start by saying the Labour Party is not going to be removing the whip for me wearing a kafaya. It's the Labour Party that's brought this motion to the Chamber tonight. And can I also, in response to some of the comments that have been made in this debate, say that any one of you could have brought a motion on this subject to this chamber. Nothing has stopped you from doing that. That was a very long time ago, and a lot has happened since then, but I'm not going to get into an argument regarding that. But all I would like to say is This is not about which party has brought it, which individual has brought it. It's about coming together and recognising that there are hundreds and thousands of people that have been killed in a situation that the UK government can have some say over, and this is what this is about. There comes a time in the life of every nation when the mirror it holds to the world reflects back not only the virtues it claims, but the contradictions it must confront. For many people, the ongoing war on Gaza has become such a crucible, forcing a deep moral reckoning. The question is no longer merely one of policy, but of principle, of who we are and who we wish to be in the face of suffering and injustice. For years, Britain's position on the conflict in Gaza has been marked by a mixture of diplomatic caution, legal equivocation and economic interest. Arms sales have flowed, official statements have tiptoed around uncomfortable truths, and the machinery of government has chugged forward, often at odds with the ideals professed on public stages. Yet beneath the surface, something has been shifting. Public opinion, once fragmented or quietly acquiescent, has begun to crystallise into a voice that demands clarity and conscience. Marches fill the streets across the UK. Petition signatures run into hundreds of thousands. Social media, for all its noise, has become a lightning rod for moral outrage and solidarity. There is a palpable sense that silence can no longer be disguised as neutrality, nor neutrality as innocence. International law, as echoed in the Geneva Conventions, holds states to account in their treatment of civilians and their complicity in conflict. Has the law for many become less a shield for the innocent than a fig leaf for the powerful? The British public, confronted by images and testimonies from Gaza, have started to see past that rhetoric. The gap between what is legal and what is right has seldom felt wider. Here lies the heart of the moral stance, a swelling recognition that complicity is not measured by arms sales alone, but in the language we adopt, the positions we defend, and the forums where we choose to speak or to remain silent. The responsibility of a nation is not diminished by bureaucracy. Instead, it is illuminated by the choices of its people and their leaders.
Can you sum up, please?
Yes, Lord Mayor. History will judge not only what the UK government did, but how its people responded. The moral imperative to act is not a single act, but an ongoing process, a series of choices, small and large, that together shape the narrative nationally. I welcome the contributions tonight, Lord Mayor, in support of this motion and commit to ensuring calls to action are carried out. And I really hope that I live long enough to see the freedom of the Palestinian people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So is the motion agreed? Did I hear a no? There's a no, right, so we need a vote. Yes. Okay. Has everybody had the chance to vote electronically who can? Okay, can we lock that vote, Linda? Right, those of you who weren't able to vote electronically, who are in favour of the motion, can you please put your hands up, please? Those of you who are against, please show. Those of you who are abstaining, please show. Okay, so we have 38 yes and 23 abstentions, so that motion is carried. Right, well, at the end of that motion, the guillotine has fallen. So we now need to deal with the business that's on the agenda. Councillor Frew, do you want to deal with your motion now or carry it to the next meeting?
I jumped ahead quite a bit, didn't I, earlier?
Just a bit.
If it's all right with Councillor Austin, could we hold it over? It's not going to stop any action on it.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. And Councillor Peter Allen, your motion on student council tax cap. Hold it over. Okay, thank you very much. And, oh, that's it. So thank you very much for attending this meeting of City Council. I look forward to seeing you after the summer at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 3rd of September. Thank you very much.